Try that again. Good evening, everyone.
Good evening.
Yeah. We like a lively group. Welcome. Call the meeting to order. Are there any closed session reports?
Nothing to report, Mr. Mayor.
Okay. Could I have Deputy Chief Brill lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance?
So would you please stand? Place your right hand over your heart. Ready? Begin.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
You may be seated.
Thank you. Roll call, please.
Councilmember Litster. Councilmember Luevanos. Here. Councilmember Judge.
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Kavanaugh. Here. Mayor Mashburn.
Here. Did everybody get a chance to look at the agenda? Are there any changes, corrections?
I move that all resolutions and ordinances presented tonight be read in title only and all further reading be waived.
Call for the vote.
Motion passes unanimously.
Okay. Does anybody have a conflict with tonight's proceedings? Anybody on the council? No? Okay.
Mr. Mayor and City Council members, the next item on the agenda is 1D1, a presentation of a 20-year service award to Police Commander Robert Arabian, and Chief Livingstone is here for this presentation.
Mayor Mashburn and members of the City Council, tonight we are recognizing Commander Robert Arabian for 20 years of service to the City of Simi Valley. I'd like to call Commander Arabian down to be recognized.
Sorry, I'm slow.
Robert Arabian began his career working for the Simi Valley Police Department in January 1999. He came to the Simi Valley Police after serving the Los Angeles Police Department as a reserve police officer for 10 years. While working as a reserve police officer, he attended Pepperdine University Law School and became a deputy district attorney in Ventura County. He prosecuted crimes in Ventura Court during the week and patrolled the streets of Los Angeles on the weekends. After several successful gang prosecutions involving victims in Simi Valley, Robert decided to leave the DA's office and the LAPD for a new career at the Simi Valley Police Department. Robert has worked a variety of assignments with the Simi Valley Police Department. He has worked as a patrol officer, a field training officer, a collision investigator, a patrol sergeant, a detective bureau sergeant, and as a commander in patrol. He currently oversees the Simi Valley Police Department Traffic Bureau and enjoys working closely with our community stakeholders. Robert spent 13 years working in the range program, first as a range master and then as a range sergeant and commander. He designed and implemented our new police shooting range. He also headed the committee that designed and outfitted the SUV police cars. Robert is here tonight after recently undergoing spinal fusion surgery. He was injured during a police pursuit in 2017 after a gang member intentionally rammed his police car trying to escape after committing a residential burglary in our community. The suspect received a 16-year prison sentence for that action. Robert is healing and is anticipated to make a full recovery. He has enjoyed serving our community for the past 20 years. We congratulate him on his accomplishments and hope he comes back to us as soon as he is able. Please join me in congratulating Commander Robert Arabian on 20 years of extraordinary service to the City of Simi Valley and thanking his family for their support.
Wow. This is, how do you turn it on? This is a special honor. I've known this gentleman for quite some time. He's what we call a true leader. And I guess when you're a super good leader and you show the troops how things are going, this is what happens to you. So he leads by example, almost to a fault. But the city's very fortunate to have you. The entire city, when I say that, not just the city, meaning here at City Hall. I mean, all the residents in Simi Valley are better off because you've been here. So we certainly appreciate that. And Deputy Chief, would you like to come down too and get in the photographs? Yeah. This guy's a special guy. Let's get the whole council down there. You want to say something?
Okay.
And as members of our department are congratulated for their years of service, they get an additional pin for the uniform, so I'm going to present that to Commander Radian. Thank you.
Mr. Mayor and City Council members, the next item on the agenda is 1D2, presentation of certificates of appreciation to outgoing Neighborhood Council Executive Board members, and Emily Habib is here for this presentation.
Good evening, Mayor Mashburn and members of the City Council. Tonight, the City Council is recognizing 14 Neighborhood Council Executive Board members who have successfully completed their 2-year terms of office. During their terms, these executive board members became familiar with a number of city programs, including the Police Department's National Preparedness Month and Environmental Services Home Rehabilitation Program, as well as city divisions including traffic engineering, code compliance, and water conservation. They also received a presentation of the State of the Region report. They forwarded 21 recommendations on development applications and policy items to the Planning Commission and the City Council, including a city-initiated municipal code amendment on proposed marijuana standards and possible revisions to the off-street vehicle parking regulations, 2 4-story buildings on First Street by Public Storage, the redevelopment of the Bellwood School, a 4-story mixed-use development at the corner of Tappo and Alamo Streets, and a 51-unit for-sale senior townhome development, including roadway connection between Walnut Street and Presidio Drive, and roadway removal between Lemon Drive and Walnut Street. These executive board members have also represented the neighborhood councils on the Special Event Support Review Committee, the Citizens Election Advisory Commission Selection Board, the Community Projects Grant Committee, and the Youth Employment Services Advisory Board. Some of the outgoing Neighborhood Council Executive Board members are present tonight. As I read your name, I ask you to come forward to receive a well-deserved certificate of appreciation for your contribution of time and leadership to the community. Neighborhood Council 1, Ted Bagley. Don Diamond. Our next 2 members are not present, but they are Karen Diaz and Monique Giuffre. And now we have Steve Colley. And Gary King. Rachel Myers and Sarah Rosario are not present tonight for Neighborhood Council 2. Steve Churchian is present. For Neighborhood Council 3, Edgar Escobar and Mary Oakes are not present. Dave Mummert, please come down to receive your certificate. Okay. And I do not believe that Steve Mace or Diane Martinez Adams are present from Neighborhood Council 4. Nope. All right. There's your appointees. Pardon me, your retirees.
How's that? Been reappointed. So the importance of our neighborhood councils is huge. Each one on the council goes and looks at those reports before we come to the council meetings. And I have to confess, oftentimes the neighborhood council asks some very good questions. And so oftentimes I plagiarize those very good questions. and I hope that the entire council does the same thing, because you folks do a lot of work, and it helps the council a lot, helps the community a lot. And I look out in the crowd, now not everybody is up here leaving, so that means there's a whole bunch of you going to be applying real soon to serve on the neighborhood council. I trust that. So would anybody like to speak about your service? No? Mr. Bagley will. Thank you.
Yeah, just a few words. It's a pleasure really to serve the community, first of all, and to serve in a way that really makes a difference. And a lot of the key elements of our community, a lot of the key initiatives of our community are discussed very vehemently among these group of folk. And they take it seriously. We take this job as serious, I'm sure as serious as the council take their jobs, because we feed information into them that they can utilize. So if you are a candidate, or if you are thinking ever about serving on a committee like this, please do. You'll learn so much more about your city if you have that opportunity. And there are a lot of things going on that you can have your hand in. So thank you very much. Thanks for the opportunity to serve.
All right, Mr. Mayor and City Council members, the next item on the agenda is 1D3, a presentation of certificates of appreciation to outgoing Special Events Support Review Committee members, and Linda Swan is here for this presentation.
Good evening, Mayor Mashburn and City Council. This evening, we would like to recognize the members of the Special Event Support Review Committee, as they had the difficult job of reviewing 8 special event support grant applications totaling to $63,000 and having only $28,500 available to allocate. The committee is comprised of 1 member from each of the city's 4 neighborhood councils and 1 member from the Council on Aging. At this time, I'd like to invite the committee members down to the dais. Eve Liebman, Neighborhood Council 1, TJ McInturf, Neighborhood Council 2. I'd also like to recognize the following members who were not able to attend this evening: Janie Trice, Neighborhood Council 3, Susan Barney, Neighborhood Council 4, and Jerry St. Germain from the Council on Aging.
This is the new council exercise program I devised. But in all seriousness, this is a committee that is in my opinion, one of the more difficult committees to serve on, because you have so many people applying for these funds, and every one of them is worthy. And these folks get to decide who actually received the funds, and they also, unfortunately, have to decide who is not going to receive any funds. And that's not a very fun position to be in, but it's an important position, and it's one that we sure appreciate when you do that and make the recommendation. And I think the truth of the matter is, when the recommendation comes, it's very rare that the council stands up and goes, no, 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 we're not doing it that way. We want to keep it on you. So with that, thank you so much. We appreciate it.
Mr. Mayor and City Council members, the next item on the agenda is 2A, public statements. The time allotted for public statements or comments on all items other than public hearing items. And tonight we do have a few cards.
Okay, should we go over the rules real quick? We're talking 3 minutes, right? Public statements is for technically anything that's not on a public hearing item, so you can come up and pretty much talk about anything that you want that hopefully it has to do with the city of Simi Valley, and you'll have 3 minutes to do that. The yellow light will come on when you're getting close to the end, and the red light will come on when you've come up to your 3-minute time limit. 3-minute time limit. And I will stop you when the red light comes on, because I'm going to try always doing that so it's fair for everybody. We just stop. There's no one going to continue on with an extra paragraph or what have you. Not trying to be rude, just trying to keep things moving. Also, I need to remind you that you'll say, talk some items that are very important to you. We are not being rude when we don't respond to your statements. It's that it's not an agendized item, so therefore we cannot have a discussion with you. So please understand that. We do hear you, we do pay attention, but we cannot respond until the very end. We might be able to give just a few short comments, but we cannot get into a discussion with you. So please understand, we're not being rude. It's part of the Brown Act rulings. Okay, with that, we're ready for the first person.
Okay, the first speaker we have tonight is Gloria Frank, and Judy Bruce will be right after her.
Good evening. Name is Gloria Frank. I am not a public speaker, and I'm not completely knowledgeable about the topic that I'm going to talk about. But I am a concerned Simi Valley resident who is worried, conflicted, and concerned about the information I'm going to impart. The wireless industry has made us believe that cell phones and now cell towers, small cell towers, are safe. They're completely ignoring that there is an extreme health hazard from wireless radiation exposure. My daughter is presently fighting cancer, and I had a talk with a radiology oncologist and her oncologist, and I said, what is the reason that we're having so many cases of cancer? And independently, they both concurred it's the environment. Cell phones were approved a decade ago before any safety testing. There's been new research since then to the tune of $28.5 million. It was the best and largest funded study for cell phone safety to date, and found that there is a definite risk of brain tumors. Consequently, brain tumors, especially on the right side, have more than doubled in cell phone users. The last California cell tower bill to pass in 2015 granted an exemption to fire stations because the firefighters union entered substantial evidence into public record that cell towers on or near fire station caused brain abnormalities in every firefighter that was examined. So why are we thinking of allowing cell towers in neighborhoods or near schools? There is clear evidence of harm. The scientists have urged the industry and the FCC to give consumers the information needed to make their own informed judgment. But profit takes precedence over science and not the protection of the consumer. Are we all going to sit back and do nothing to combat this? Like the issue with smoking, only to see terrible results in the near future. The apparent lack of certainty promotes consumer doubt. Why is it that there is no single insurance company that will sell a product liability policy to cover cell phone or cell tower radiation? We need to educate and act on this. Local government policies and ordinances must regulate and control the wireless facilities, prohibiting small cell towers in certain areas, and create applications and recertification fees and impose strict requirements for the protection of our city. And thank you.
Hello, I'm Judy Bruce. The new technology, the Internet of Things, the wireless industry is very excited. They project it's a $7 trillion business. The government's promoting it. Future of humanity depends on it. It must be implemented. When the government and corporations see big money, they're joined at the hip. Health consequences be damned. The consumer gets what? The ability to watch reruns of Law and Order that he's already watching. His current TV reception isn't good enough. Their appliances, they're talking to each other, connected to the internet. They're spying on him, recording his energy use in conjunction with smart meters, all for the, quote, common good. Need your toaster connected to the internet? Really want that? The city hears what the industry thinks is good for the community. Sounds good. But is it? What are they not telling you? The reality is it a Trojan horse? The wireless industry gets revenue. Consumers get a tremendous increase in radiation level, sickness, and death. The city gets a huge liability. Private antennae on public property should never be allowed. Thank you. This, nationwide, communities are being told by wireless companies, oh, it's necessary, got to have these small cells in neighborhoods, on streetlights, utility poles, to offer the Internet of Things. They're estimating that millions of these transmitters will be put in public right-of-ways directly in front of our homes. Radiation from these small cells are not small. They're 24/7, and you cannot turn them off. Newsflash, a whistleblower recently blows the lid off of the hazards of 4G, 5G cell towers. He's an outside plant field engineer. He installs, replaces, repairs, tests on top of cell towers. He admits the real danger is what is coming off of the antenna. Asked him, are these cell towers endangering our lives? He said, definitely. And he said, what is worse is that when they are mounted on buildings, people working in other offices, living in apartments in direct line of these transmitters are creating what the industry calls cancer alleys. They asked, why have cell towers going next to schools, churches, and homes? He says, I don't know why they would put them anywhere near a school, church, or home. Solution is high-speed internet, municipal broadband using fiber optics. I'm not speaking about issues of just worry and risk and concern. This is established science concludes substantial evidence that biological hazards as a toxic agent, radio frequency, emergency, electromagnetic
Mrs.
frequency.
Bruce, your time's up.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
The next speaker we have tonight is Bridget Baxendale, and following will be Jenny Nack, and the final speaker is Bruce Boyer.
Good evening. My name is Bridget Baxendale. At the beginning of every disaster movie, there's a scientist being ignored. A densified infrastructure of wireless radiation is a public health disaster waiting to happen. Many reputable scientists, including 250 UN health professionals, are warning the world of this crisis. The Telecommunications Act of 1996 and its implementing regulations were a response to a wish list of the wireless industry, which dominates the FCC. Radiation guidelines have not been updated since 1996, when we had 2G. They are completely inadequate for today's technologies. If the FCC has its way, we will be subject to forced exposure to a known toxic agent, wireless radiation, which has effects that are no different than secondhand smoke, which means we will not be safe in our own homes. There will be a radiation beam or cancer alley in industry terms into our bedroom windows 24/7. Macro towers can be 3,000 feet away from homes and still provide service at gigahertz speeds. It is unnecessary to have small cells in residential areas every 500 to 1,000 feet. If we need better transmission speed, there's a faster, cheaper, safer way called fiber optics. The city already has jurisdiction over the fiber optic network. It just needs the courage to take back a public asset that was stolen by the wireless industry. The allegation that the race to 5G is critical is a race against science, and 4G is setting the stage for the coming of 5G. With 4G, Big Wireless knows that radiation causes cancer, just like Big Tobacco know about the effects of smoking. There have been no studies on the safety of 5G. Therefore, we should follow the precautionary principle, making sure it is safe first. A logical fallacy is sold to the world. Lack of definitive proof that technology is harmful means it is safe. That is not true. The industry tells us we, the American consumers, will benefit, but who will be the real beneficiaries? The telecom industry will make billions in equipment sales, and corporations will make billions data mining from the Internet of Things. Meanwhile, the media fails to inform the public. What can the City Council do before it is too late? You can adopt a protective ordinance. We are here to assist you. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Jenny Nack. Originally, the Rocketdyne site was chosen specifically because the surrounding area was sparsely populated. This is no longer the case. Within 10-mile radius, there's over 500,000 residents. The serious accidents that happened 60 years ago have still not been cleaned up. The AOC agreement, the cleanup agreement, was hard fought by a group of local residents. They're still waiting for that cleanup that was supposed to be completed 2017. That's why I was so deeply disappointed yesterday at Katy Hill's town hall to hear Mayor Mashburn call for a return of aerospace industry as an answer to our city's fiscal issues. I was also dismayed by Congressman Hill's call for continued support of Boeing, the polluter that's yet to show that it can conduct business responsibly. For the past 3 months, since the Woolsey fire, I was hired by Fairwinds Energy Education out of South Carolina. They're a nuclear watchdog organization to collect soil and dust samples from within 100 miles of the San Jose Field site. I've sampled from hundreds of local residents. As you know, I'm new here. I'm not new here anymore. I've met hundreds of people. People are very, very concerned about the spread of contaminants that the DT assures us have not been spread. The data will come out 4 to 5 months from now in a peer-reviewed study for everyone to hear about, but we have to have better ideas for economic, for fiscal soundness than organizations who do dirty business, who come in, make a mess, put us all at risk environmentally, health-wise, and don't clean it up. We have to do better. I want to hear something else other than more of the mess of what this city has been subjected to. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Good evening, all. My name is Bruce Boyer, and I'm not a resident of Simi Valley. I live in the unincorporated areas right next to you there in Box Canyon. I'm speaking to you tonight as a plaintiff in my case against the city of Simi Valley. What happened tonight in closed session is, of course, not disclosed to the public. What happens in closed session is probably the most important things the council does, but it's withheld from the public. What the council knows is that for better than 2.5 years, I have tried to get you to understand that the flag that we pledge allegiance to, the Republic of Liberty and Justice for All, means we have rights. Our First Amendment right is in Simi Valley. And for the City Council to declare that our First Amendment right means that it does not extend to our vehicles, that is not going to fly. I'm not putting for it. We're in federal court. For the City of Simi Valley to declare that the California Vehicle Code is subject to the City of Simi Valley, no. The Vehicle Code does not allow any city to prohibit the parking of registered vehicles, whether they be RVs on our public streets, trailers on our public streets, which I believe that the city wants to, of course, ban to enrich, the storage yards. Yes, this is about enriching the storage yards. So you lack Vehicle Code authority per the Supremacy Clause of Section 21. So that you all know, in 2003, I sued the City of Los Angeles over this issue of the Supremacy Clause. Federal Judge Matz ruled that the Supremacy Clause is the law, not what the City of Los Angeles thought it was. And they were at least close, because they were talking about a 72-hour ordinance, which is in the Vehicle Code. But as Judge Matz made it very clear, no city or county can amend it even a little bit. Now, I have received many parking citations from the city. What methods does the city have to deliver due process to the vehicle owner who gets a parking citation? Well, the Vehicle Code tells us you provide a review, which is not done, and then you provide a hearing. But Simi doesn't do hearings because the city can't be bothered with providing hearings to people to get parking tickets. That's only elemental due process. So, 2 of you are new. I've invited all of you to have a conversation, private, public. These people do not need to pay for political games for violating the law. You make them pay, they ought to be coming for all of you. So settle this sooner rather than later. On behalf of the taxpayers, respect our rights and the law.
Thank you, Mr. Boyer. That was the final speaker. So go to 2B, comments regarding the public statements.
What do you smell? Who do you want to go first? You go. I'll start. I'll be happy to. Actually, I wanted to respond to our first 3 speakers, Ms. Frank, Ms. Bruce, and Ms. Borkendale. I may be saying that incorrectly. I hear your complaints and concerns about cell towers and radiation, and I spoke actually with our planning department today, and I know that we're in the process of reviewing our code and rewriting things. And I guess I just wanted to say that your concerns have been heard, and we as a council are looking at those concerns, and obviously we want a safe environment in our city and want to find the best and most effective way of doing that. And we know that is through how we change and how we modify our code, and so that's in the process. And so I just wanted to offer that encouragement and let you know that you've been heard. And Ms. Nash, I appreciate your comments about the soil sampling and your concerns. I'd be very interested to hear your reports or to see what you produce and come up with. Obviously, we want a safe environment, and so thank you for being here, and please share your results with us as they come forward. So that was it. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else?
You took all my comments.
Oh, sorry.
Okay. No, fine. Okay, I have some comments. Is it Miss Nash? Is
Nack, K-N-A-C.
Nack. Okay, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I just want to respond to your comment, that the comment I made. I certainly did make a comment that I encourage aerospace industry that comes into our city, because we have quite a bit of aerospace industry here. However, we're not launching any rockets. We're not fueling them and testing rocket ships, and we don't have any radioactive materials. And any possible hazardous materials that may be used in these, I'll call them machine shops, manufacturing places, are highly, highly regulated, and everything's measured in and out. These are job-producing industries, and I don't know of any that do any launching of spacecraft in Simi Valley. They build parts, they're subcontractors, they ship those parts to, I don't know where they do assembly maybe of jet aircraft and all kinds of other things, but there's no danger here, because I used the term aerospace certainly didn't mean that we're going to be launching space shuttles or anything like that from Simi Valley. So I wish you would stick to the facts. What Keith Mashburn brought up was industry that brings jobs to this community, healthy jobs to this community. Thank you. That's it? Okay.
All right, Mr. Mayor and City Council members, the next item on the agenda is 2C, Youth Employment Services Council Comments. And Gloria Bowman, Board Chair, is here for this presentation.
Good evening, Mayor Mashburn and members of the City Council. My name is Gloria Bowman. I'm the Chair of the Youth Employment Service Advisory Board, YES, and I'm delighted to be here this evening. My day job officially is fitness instructor, but I'm a lifeguard instructor, water safety instructor, and instructor trainer. I spend my spring and summer teaching mostly little kids how to swim, and the rest of the year I'm lifeguarding at the swimming pool, working with and training 15 to 20-year-old staff members. The City Council, in their wisdom, recognized the importance of assisting youth entering the workforce when they established the Youth Employment Service Advisory Board in 1982. The Youth Employment Service Advisory Board is made up of representatives of government agencies, schools, employers, and community members at large to discuss employment issues that relate to youth. Meetings take place on the third Wednesday of each month during the school year, August through May, at 8:15 a.m. in the City Hall Community Room. The meetings are open to the public, and anyone with an interest in youth employment is encouraged to attend. Simi Valley is one of the few cities in the region that offers this type of service to prepare our young people for jobs of the 21st century. Our first Job and Career Expo was held in 1987. Over the past 31 years, close to 21,500 youth have been served. Our 32nd annual event is scheduled on March 16th at the Boys and Girls Club. The long-standing free event features mock interviews as practice before entering the vendor area, on-site interviews, exposure to career options, internships and volunteer opportunities, assistance with completing job applications, submitting online job applications, and creating resumes. This year, more than 70 employers, and organizations will participate in the expo. This is our largest vendor response to date. We are also expecting approximately 250 youth ages 15 to 25 to attend. Many of our first-time employers comment on how impressed they are with our youth in attendance, from how they are dressed appropriately, that they make eye contact, and shake hands confidently. Our board's focus has been on workforce education for young people, and now in particular, connecting them with various career pathways. We have co-sponsored a summer workshop series with the Simi Valley Public Library, which includes resume writing, entering the workforce, and entrepreneurism. For the last 3 years, we have also co-hosted the volunteer fair with the Simi Valley Public Library. We have conducted 450 mock interviews over this past year, including over 200 students with disabilities. Our major program in this area is our interview skills workshops. This February and March, over 1,400 local students will receive training on work permits, application completion, digital first impression, appropriate interview attire, follow-up procedures, networking basics, the interview process and common questions, resume writing, workplace ethics, and best practices on leaving a job. Each participant also receives a comprehensive interview skills workshop handbook to keep. Each of you has a copy of the handbook, and the flyer for our event is inside of it. The handbook and slide presentation are reviewed annually and was updated this year with current information, references, and current professional articles about getting a job. Much of what our board is able to accomplish would not be possible without key collaborations with the Chamber of Commerce and the local business community, the Simi Valley Unified School District, and numerous community volunteers. A year ago, our board members discussed the idea of a Simi Valley business startup or incubator, and a committee was formed to research business incubators, their best practices, and the needs of entrepreneurs in our area. At our first committee meeting, we found out that the city manager's office also had an interest in this type of project, so we keep them in the loop of our progress. The Business Incubator Committee's task is to research the needs and focus areas best suited for Simi Valley, as well as best practices for incubators. This year, the committee has reached out and met with Hub 101, that is affiliated with Cal Lutheran University, and the Business Department and Entrepreneur Program at Moore Park College. They have opened the lines of communication between the groups and are working on identifying our niche in this exciting area. The committee meets at the Simi Valley Chamber of Commerce office and reports the information gathered back to the YES board at our regular monthly meeting. Our call to action, so to speak, is to encourage more local employers to hire youth, whether paid or unpaid interns, to provide critical opportunities for our youth to build job skills, to offer job shadow experiences, to provide youth exposure to various career opportunities, and to get involved by participating in our Job and Career Expo. This results in a robust and skilled labor force. Thank you for continuing to support the work of the YES Advisory Board and YES program. We invite each of you to come and witness the work of the board, what we do, by stopping by the Job and Career Expo on Saturday, March 16th, or drop in to watch one of our various interview skills workshops happening the rest of this month at our local high schools. We will be at Santa Susana all day tomorrow. Thank you for your time, and I'd be happy to answer any questions that you may have about our YES program.
Questions from the council? I have a comment. Good work. Good work. You know, when we hear about housing issues that we're facing, and the people not enough workforce housing and what have you, well, this is the first step, in my opinion, is teaching people how to go out and get work, because even when we have those low income opportunities in workforce housing, it's still going to be a lot of money, and they're preparing people to go out and get good paying jobs that they could go in and grow in local industry and stay in this community. So my hat's off to you. Great job.
Thank you very much.
right, Mr. Mayor and City Council members, the next item on the agenda is item 3.1, appointment of trustee Elaine Litster to serve on the Simi Valley Library Board of Trustees and adoption of a resolution as follows. Resolution number PL-24, a resolution of the Simi Valley Library Board of Trustees appointing City Council member Litster to the Simi Valley Library Board of Trustees. And Kelly Tinker is here for this presentation.
Good evening, Mayor Mashburn and members of the City Council. In April of 2012, the City of Simi Valley established the Simi Valley Library Board with the council members serving as members of the Board of Trustees. Pursuant to California Education Code, library board members serve 3-year terms of office. With the midterm election of Councilmember Mashburn as mayor for the City of Simi Valley, a vacancy was created on the City Council, which was filled February 8, 2019, through the appointment of Elaine Litster to the City Council. With the appointment of Councilmember Litster, it is recommended that she be appointed to the Simi Valley Library Board of Trustees to fill the unexpired term of former Mayor Huber, set to expire June 2019. This concludes staff presentation, and I'm available for comments.
Okay, any questions of staff? Hear a motion.
I move that we adopt a resolution appointing Councilmember Litster as a member of the Simi Valley Library Board of Trustees.
Second.
Call for the vote.
Motion passes unanimously.
Congratulations.
Thank you. Actually, I'm looking forward to it. I can't think of a better board to be part of. Thank you.
All right, Mr. Mayor and City Council members, the next item on the agenda is item 3.2, appointment by City Council members Luevanos and Litster of 2 members to the Budget Advisory Committee, and Linda Swan is here for this presentation.
Good evening, Mayor Mashburn and City Council. During adoption of the fiscal year 17-18 budget, City Council requested a process to solicit input from the public about the city's general fund budget and obtain recommendations that would further the city's future financial sustainability. As part of this process, the City Council created a Budget Advisory Committee comprised of 5 members of the public who are local residents and or business owners. With the departure of former Mayor Huber and Council Member Becerra in December 2018, 2 new vacancies now exist on the committee. Staff has reached out to the 2 new council members for their prospective nominees. Councilmember Luevanos has nominated Mary Platt, and Councilmember Litster has nominated Josie Hirsch. This evening, staff is requesting that the council approve and the mayor appoint Mary Platt and Josie Hirsch to the Budget Advisory Committee, with terms commencing on February 25th, 2019, and concluding at the end of the current fiscal year.
Do we want to ask the nominees to come down and get an opportunity to speak? Josie Hirsch and Mary Platt, would you like to step forward?
Thank you, Mayor and Council. I'm extremely excited at this opportunity to help the city with this financial situation that we're coming into. I know how dire it is. We have a $72 million budget. I'm better with numbers than words. So I am very excited to take my financial analyst experience as well as my forensic accounting experience and put it to work to benefit our community. Thank you for this chance.
Thank you. Is Mary Platt here?
She had another meeting in Ventura. But
Probably a financial meeting.
yes. She serves on several committees and clubs in the community. But Mary's a long-term resident. She has experience working with businesses and working with a number of organizations, working with her financials, and as a former treasurer. So I know that she has the experience and the wherewithal and the historical background of our community because she's lived here for so long.
Great. Great. Any comments? Motion?
Move staff recommendation.
Second.
Call for the vote.
Motion passes unanimously.
Thank you. And then for the official, it says the mayor has to appoint, so I hereby appoint Josie Hirsch and Mary Platt to the Advisory Council Committee. Excuse me.
All right, Mr. Mayor and City Council members, the next item on the agenda is 3.3, appointment of Neighborhood Council Executive Board members to the 4 neighborhood councils, and Emily Abib is here for this presentation.
Good evening again, Mayor Mashburn and members of the City Council. This is the Neighborhood Councils Part 2. Since 1970, the neighborhood councils have served as an important component in the city government structure. They promote citizen awareness and participation in local government. They advise the City Council and Planning Commission on development projects and citizen concerns. Effective February 28, 2019, 18 positions on the executive boards of the 4 neighborhood councils will be vacant. On January 31st, 2019, Mayor Mashburn and Councilmember Judge interviewed the eligible applicants for the executive boards of neighborhood councils 1 and 3 and nominated 9 for appointment. On February 19th, 2019, Mayor Pro Tem Kavanaugh and Councilmember Luevanos interviewed the eligible applicants for the executive boards of neighborhood councils 2 and 4 and nominated 8 for appointment. A total of 17 applicants are being nominated to serve 2-year terms of office beginning March 1st, 2019. Some of the nominees are present this evening. As I read your name, please come forward. Neighborhood Council 1, Patrick Bolger, Celia Bowman, Howard Glover, Dennis Lee, Brent Rollins, Ron Rudman. Neighborhood Council 2, Gina Gooding, Eric Coley, Benjamin Ramirez, and Jan Smith. Neighborhood Council 3, Jessica Freeman, Keith Kelly, and Bruce Roth. Neighborhood Council 4, Joe Barona, Pete Stong, Jennifer Warner, and Rain Weissman. It is recommended that the City Council approve and the Mayor appoint these 17 applicants nominated by the interview subcommittees to the executive boards of the neighborhood councils.
Move staff's recommendation.
I second.
Okay, everybody here, get a good look at them. This is your new contact. Maybe they ought to give you their phone numbers also. But at any rate, thank you so much for taking on this. We'll call it a job, and I think you'll enjoy it, and getting out and talking to all your neighbors. And you also. You can knock on any door, and they'll open it for your mom. I promise that. But anyway, thank you so much for serving your city and helping the council out. Your pay.
Actually, Mr. Mayor, you have to call for the vote.
Mayor Mashburn.
Mr. Mayor, we need you to call for the vote so we can actually vote officially.
I'm sorry?
We need you to call for the vote.
Oh, I thought we did. Call for the vote. And the city manager will place my vote for me. I've already told him about the fee.
What's he going to do about you?
Motion passes unanimously.
So like the other positions, it's the council votes, and if it's positive, then I don't have a choice. And not that I would take a different avenue, but you're all appointed to the position of neighborhood council. Thank you very much.
Mr. Mayor and City Council members, the next item on the agenda is 3.4, selection of 2 City Council members to conduct Community Projects Grant Review Committee interviews, And Mara Mount is here for this presentation.
Good evening, Mayor Mashburn and members of the City Council. The City Council established the Community Projects Grant Program for the disbursement of funds received from Waste Management for community programs and projects. The funding requests from local nonprofit organizations are reviewed by the Community Projects Grant Review Committee prior to consideration by the City Council. The Review Committee consists of one representative from each of the 4 neighborhood councils, one representative from the Council on Aging, one representative from the Youth Council, and one Community at-Large member. The Community at-Large member is interviewed and nominated for appointment by 2 City Council members. The recruitment for that position will be initiated on February 28th once all the funding requests from nonprofits have been submitted, which will allow staff to assess any potential conflicts of interest of committee applicants. To accommodate the program's timelines and ensure timely distribution of funds to the recipient organizations, interviews need to be scheduled between March 18th and March 29th. All nominees for the review committee will be presented to the City Council for appointment at the April 8th City Council meeting. Therefore, it is recommended that the City Council select a subcommittee of 2 City Council members to conduct interviews and nominate a prospective Community at-Large member and 1 alternate to the Community Projects Review Committee.
Discussion? Volunteers?
I volunteer.
I'm happy to volunteer as well.
Go ahead.
Okay. Any further discussion? Now, what did you say we needed alternates also?
The committee would recommend the alternate as well. So we, from the community at large, we accept one of those, each of those positions, and an alternate for each of those positions, because sometimes things come up and they can't serve, or sometimes identified potential conflicts are identified after the appointment process.
Okay, so that's already taken care of. Yes.
Correct.
Okay, good. So do we need a motion for that?
I'll do it. I move to select council members Levinos and Litster to conduct interviews and nominate a prospective community at-large member and 1 alternate to the Community Projects Grant Review Committee.
Second.
Call for the vote. I did.
Motion passes unanimously. Mr. Mayor and City Council members, the next item on the agenda is the consent calendar, and there are 2 resolutions for consideration tonight as follows. Consent item 7, resolution number 2019-06, a resolution of the City Council of the City of Simi Valley adopting program supplement number F048 to the administering agency state agreement number 07-5405F15 for preliminary engineering services for rehabilitation of Madera Road Bridge, federal aid project number BHLS-5405077. Consent calendar item 8, resolution number 2019-07, a resolution of the City Council of the City of Simi Valley declaring its intention to renew the Simi Valley Tourism Marketing District, SVTMD, and fixing the time and place of a public meeting and a public hearing thereon and giving notice thereof.
Okay, anybody want to pull anything off the consent?
I do. I'd like to pull item number 8. I just have a couple questions.
Thank you, because I think potentially they want to make a presentation also. So, okay.
That might answer my questions.
Yeah, that could do that.
And I'd like to pull 6 as well as 8.
So we're going to pull 6 and 8.
I'd like to pull item 3.
Which one?
3.
3. 6, 8, and 3. Okay, so let's just go through the ones we pulled and see if we can take care of those. So we'll start with consent 3. Councilmember Levinos.
I have no issue with the report. I just wanted to make sure for future agendas, I'm not sure if it's appropriate to say it here or not. I'd like to, in the future, have on the agenda passing an ordinance establishing a special election for future city council vacancies in order to promote democracy. And I know it's related to that, to the vacancy. So I'm not sure if that is on future business, or I know it's related to a vacancy procedure, but I would like for us to, in the future, have that on the agenda, discuss possibly passing an ordinance. We have a lot smaller cities, like Moore Park and Camarillo, who have already passed ordinances so that they're not in the position that we were in with the vacancy that we have, and that it's established in an ordinance, and that there's not as much confusion.
So, okay, I think the appropriate thing would be is if we bring it up again under 9B, and then we'll agendize it.
Yes, thank you.
Okay. Okay, so are you good to go ahead and
Yes.
leave that? Okay, thank you. So then we'll go to consent 6. Councilmember Lister.
Yes, I'm just going to go to my notes that I took. My question was, has the second phase been started yet? This might be a question for, go back to
Are you asking the question about on the Simi Valley side of this agreement? Is that what you're asking?
Yes, I guess that's my question. As I understand, we're swapping funds from one to another, and we're ending up with the funds that we need to actually complete the project, and it's coming from CMAQ, if I'm not mistaken. I was just curious whether this. I mean, I know that as I read through this, it looks like there's not much likelihood that the funds would be removed. But my question is, have we actually started that second phase that would start utilizing those funds?
I'll ask Ron to come up and speak to that.
Good evening. Yes, we have started the, I guess you'd call it the second phase of the project to upgrade the CNG facility at the transit maintenance yard. We've started with a RFP to hire a design consultant. It's a specialty kind of design, so we don't have the expertise in-house. We should be awarding that contract within 2 weeks, I believe. So from that point on, we'll get the design, move into plans and specs and construction.
Wonderful. And I guess that was my question. I just wanted to be sure if we made this swap that it was going to get done and
yes,
we had the funding necessary.
Yes, we're moving forward. We know we are on a tight timeline, so we can't delay too often.
Excellent. Thank you.
Okay.
Yeah, thank
Good.
you.
We'll leave it on?
Yeah.
Okay. And consent 8, Mayor Pro Tem Kavanaugh.
I just had questions regarding the expense allocations and whether the city sees the actual expense report in detail.
Good evening, Mayor Mashburn and council members. We do provide an annual report to the city that shows all of our expenses in detailed of what we do for our expenditures. We also provide a detailed plan as well to the Chamber of Commerce Board of Directors.
Okay, so on here it says, for example, sales, marketing, and operations is 76% of the budget, so over $250,000. So that's broken down completely in the report?
Correct.
I just want to double check. Thank you.
No problem.
And did you have anything else you wanted to share with us at
I
this
have
point?
a presentation if you have time. If not,
How long will it take?
it's 10 slides. I do have it in paper format if you would like to look at it that way.
I think if you just pass it out.
Okay.
Unless if you want to give it, we can make that
It's
happen.
totally up to you all. I have it in paper format if you just wanted to look at it.
And I believe tonight's action is primarily just to set the public hearing. Too.
Yes.
And I do have a couple of questions with reference to this as well.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry.
No, it's all right. I guess my question is, I understand this is just to set up the hearing to continue the district. If we wanted to reevaluate the percentage, for instance, that the district is allotted, is this not the place? When would that discussion take place?
That
It
the one month from now at that meeting. And then that's also when we would vote on moving forward. This is just to set the
Gotcha.
timeframe.
Okay, and because I think we need to have a discussion possibly about transit occupancy tax percentage versus what we're paying the district anyway. So, but that would be next month. That's fine.
I had a couple questions on this as well.
Yes.
My question was, and I don't know whether or not you can answer this or not, but I noticed that Grand Vista and Extended Stay did not join. Did they give any reason, or?
To my understanding, there was a conflict prior to my hiring, so I don't feel comfortable answering that question because anything I know is hearsay. I wasn't in attendance of any of those meetings, so I wouldn't know really the best answer to give. It's pretty much hearsay of what I know.
Okay, and the second question that I hope will be addressed is I saw that we get 1% in our I'm wondering whether or not our administrative costs will be covered with the $3,300. That is the revenue that we're expected to get, and I don't know if that is going to be included in the exploration of the reformation of this committee or not. So I guess that's what I wanted to know.
I have a question now. Is that their responsibility or is it the city responsibility? But that's a great question.
Staff, yeah.
And so I would submit to staff to come up with whatever and present at the next meeting whatever the costs are to the city and make sure that we're recouping those costs. Also, if I can go back to your previous question, that is a disagreement of, I guess, personnel issues that happened between the owner or manager of the Grand Vista versus the person who was the chair of the tourism committee previously. And that chair left, and there was discussion. They didn't feel it was appropriate the way the job was not terminated but ended, and that was the only the problem. There's no problem that I'm aware of with the actual functioning of the tourism. It's just they weren't happy with the way some personnel issues were taken care of, and my understanding is that the Grand Vista is actually still kind of in support of, and they know this is a good committee. It's just a personal problem with the way personnel issue was handled. And that's far behind us, by the way.
It just appears the way that it's written that it applies to all the hotels, regardless of whether or not they buy into it or not.
It does apply to them all.
And I would not want to impose something that might expose us to litigation or some sort of liability. So that's my concern. If we could find out, that's the only reason I wanted to know why they didn't want to join.
Extended stay has an issue with the amount of time you can stay there because the TOT only goes up to 28 days, I believe. So if you stay past 28 days, the TOT doesn't apply, correct?
That is correct. It's either 28 or 29, but that is correct.
30?
Okay, now, the question is, when we have these questions, would your presentation answer some of the questions?
No, it's just kind of an overview of everything we've done, the collections and things like that.
Okay, then we'll go ahead and we'll wait until next month for that part of the presentation. So,
I can give them.
Yes.
Yeah.
Might as well give us one.
Okay.
Right.
So we have a head start.
We're waiting for that, Mr. Mayor. I'll move consent items 1 through 8.
Okay.
Second.
Call for the vote.
Motion passes unanimously.
Thank you.
All right, Mr. Mayor and City Council members, the next item on the agenda is 6A, a public hearing. This is the time and place set for a public hearing on the consideration of matters as presented on this agenda. And let the record show that due notice was given as required by law, and an affidavit to this effect is on file in the office of the city clerk. The reports of the city staff relating to these matters shall be made a part of the record of this meeting. Speakers during public hearing shall limit their comments to matters relevant to the item on the agenda and may be ruled out of order if comments are unrelated to the item. If you challenge in court any of the City Council decisions made here tonight, you may be limited to raising only those issues you or someone else raised at this public hearing. The time within which judicial review must be sought is governed by California Code of Civil Procedure, Section 1094.6.
Okay, so we have a little bit of a different method of doing this. This is time and place for a public hearing to consider a request from Runkle Canyon LLC to amend Development Agreement DA-04-01, AMD number 03, for a 3-year time extension and reuse of the Certified Environmental Impact Report and addendum for the Runkle Canyon Woodlands project located at the south terminus of Sequoia and Talbert Avenues. And we need a reading of the ordinance.
Yes, agenda item 6A, first reading ordinance number 1295, an ordinance of the City Council of the City of Simi Valley approving an amendment to the development agreement DA-04-01, AMD number 03, to extend the term for 3 years and reuse of the certified final environmental impact report and addendum for the Runkle Canyon Woodlands project located at the south terminus of Sequoia and Talbert Avenues.
Is there any ex parte communications to report?
Yes, I met with 2 representatives from KB Homes on February 20th to discuss this.
Okay, thank you. Anybody else?
I met with KB Homes as well.
Okay.
So did I.
Okay. Mayor Pro Tem? And I did. So that was last Friday, I think. I don't recall. But at any rate, I did meet with representatives of the applicant. Okay, staff.
Okay. Good evening, Mayor Mashburn and City Council members. Tonight's item before you is a development agreement time extension. For those not familiar, a development agreement is a contract between the city and an applicant on a development project. It typically involves very complex development projects, one that require multiple years for development, phasing, large amounts of grading, or even infrastructure improvements. And the Runkle Canyon project has actually met all those requirements. In exchange for our development agreement, the city usually derives a community benefit out of the project. In this case, they provided public facility fees as well as parks and dedicated open space. And so with that introduction, I'll turn over now to Senior Planner Jennifer Santos to make the presentation.
Good evening, everyone. The applicant, Runkle Canyon LLC, is requesting to extend the term of the development agreement for 3 years. As mentioned, the development agreement is a contract between the city and the developer to construct the site. The term for the development agreement is set to expire this year on June 10th, 2019. To give a little background, the project and the development agreement were approved in 2004, and the development agreement had a maximum term of 10 years. In 2012, the term of the development agreement was extended for 5 years. The second amendment provided additional contributions and amended and restated the affordable housing agreement to set forth payment to pay in lieu fees in order to terminate the affordable agreement. The 3-year extension is being requested would allow more time to complete the development of the project and would extend the term of the development agreement to June 10, 2022. As proposed, the amendment does not affect a previously approved subdivision, infrastructure improvements, number of dwelling units, the density, or other design aspects of the approved project. The approved project for Runkle Canyon is located at the southern terminus of Sequoia Avenue and consists of approximately 1,600 acres. The original approval included open space, a public neighborhood park, 3 homeowner association parks, a public trailhead with trails, water storage tank, 25 custom home lots, 298 detached single-family residents, 138 attached senior condominiums, a senior recreation facility, and other related infrastructure improvements. Development of the project has been ongoing since 2015. Extending the term of the development agreement will allow the project to be completed and will further assist with the public benefits derived from the development agreement. Some of the benefits include the public facility payment that was part of the previously approved amendment. This payment was increased under the last amendment to $3.9 million that is used for public road improvements, public services for the senior center activities, maintenance and operation, public dial ride services, public bus shelters, and other public amenities. Extending the term will ensure the payments continue to be made to the city. If the development agreement expires, the applicant would need to obtain new entitlement approvals for the unbuilt single-family homes and the senior component of the project. Building permits still need to be issued for the remaining 73 single-family homes. Construction is still also pending for the 25 custom home lots, the 138 senior condominiums, and the senior recreation facility. On January 23, 2019, the Planning Commission recommended by a vote of 3-0 that the City Council approve the development agreement amendment for the 3-year time extension. The Planning Commission emphasized that there was a strong support for the senior component during the original approval. The Planning Commission supported the extension, however, would find it hard to grant another time extension if the senior component did not get pursued. The applicant commented that on economic challenges they faced to construct the senior condominiums. However, the grading, building pads, paving, and utilities have been installed. Since this time, they have been exploring options on the best way to develop the site for the senior condominium component. The proposed amendment is within the project description of the certified final environmental impact report and the previous approved addendum. The Planning Commission recommends that the City Council introduce an ordinance approving the Development Agreement Amendment DA-04-01, Amendment Number 3, to allow a 3-year time extension and reuse of the certified final environmental impact report and addendum for the Runkle Canyon Woodlands project. This concludes my presentation and will be available for any questions. Thank you for your time this evening.
Okay, for the council, any questions of staff?
I do.
Mayor Pro Tem Kavanaugh.
Do we have an estimated time frame for the remaining buildings to be built? I mean, we're giving them 3 years, but do they even have a plan set up yet?
It's in our opinion, I mean, from speaking to the applicant, they feel confident in completing the construction within this time frame.
Okay. I saw we still have 73 homes, 25 custom lots, and the senior condos. The park was finished about 3 years ago, and that was kind of one of the key things. I was there for that, so I remember. So are the senior condos the next thing up?
That would be one of the bigger things that's left remaining on the project.
Because I would really prefer that those go first before anything else. Just my preference. Thanks.
Councilmember Lister. No? No? Okay.
I guess I have a question. I'm not sure whether or not it's impacted, but I'm curious whether or not the recent fires that we had this fall would have impacted the final environmental impact report at all, or not, or if it was anywhere near there at all.
No, it wouldn't.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, Mr. Judge? No?
And actually, I was just going to say that I think that we need to offer this extension. What's remaining is all very important to be built, and particularly the senior component. And so, I mean, I see no reason not. And the financial reasoning where they've also, if I understand it correctly, where they have made an agreement that is helping to fund other resources in our city, that I think it behooves us to pass this so that that isn't disrupted or have to be renegotiated.
Okay. Okay, I have a question. First of all, Mayor Pro Tem asked if it was next, and you said the biggest. I believe that's what your answer was. So I wanted to hear what her question, the answer to her question. Would the senior apartments be next, or is that after the 73 homes?
I would defer to the applicant for that question.
Okay. We'll wait until they're up. Okay. Also,
They are here if you want to ask them.
I'm going to wait until it's their turn to come up. The other question I have, we speak of the contract. Does the contract guarantee that this, let's say that we give an extension and they build the 73 homes, can they stop there? And do we have a contract that's secure and that they are required to build the senior housing?
And that's why the contract's set in place to ensure that what was originally proposed does come to fruition. However, if there's some circumstance where that can't be, they would have to come back and request an amendment again to do that. But as I see it now, this is just to increase the time to complete the construction of the previously approved project.
Okay, and is that a typical request, is 3 years, not 1 year?
It has been in the past. That has been for other projects where they have, just based on market conditions or their own financial situation, where they have requested a time extension, and the standard has been about 3 years.
Okay, that was a question that I had. Okay. Good. Is there anyone in the council chambers wishing to speak on this matter?
And pardon me, Mr. Mayor, I think there's an error in the hearing script. I think the applicant gets a chance to present, if I'm not mistaken, and I don't see that here. So maybe I think it's usually before the public comments, if I'm not mistaken.
Okay,
so
well, let's just go ahead.
insert that in there.
Let's just do it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so that you want to offer them an opportunity to speak.
Okay, so if the applicant would like to speak and answer the questions that we brought up too, that'd be great.
Good evening. My name is Ben O'Neill with KB Home. Thank you for having us and giving us the opportunity to speak tonight, Mayor Mashburn and council members. Staff did a wonderful job providing an overview of the request and kind of where we stand today. My presentation, I was going to just walk you through visually where we are, just by kind of looking at the site plan.
I'm going to raise this a little bit.
Thank you. Maybe not on quite yet.
She'll do it for you.
Oh, well, thank you. There you go. I'll just do that. This slide, the first slide is just showing the single-family detached homes that have been constructed already. As we mentioned, it's 224, 225 out of the 298 so far. In addition to the homes that are already constructed or permitted, much of the landscaping on site, about 95% of the area that was intended to be landscaped, is already landscaped. Much of the hillsides surrounding the project are native landscaping, so they remain as is. In addition to the landscaping, or as part of the landscaping that we did, there is a mitigation area in the southern portion of the site, and we're in the third year of a 5-year mitigation, maintenance, restoration program there. And then, as noted, in addition to the homes that have been built and the landscaping that's been installed, there is a public park. The large public park off the end of Talbert and Fur is constructed and installed. And then there are 3 private parks, 2 small HOA parks on site, as well as a small private HOA park at the corner of Sequoia and White Park. So that is also constructed and complete. And then in addition to that, the areas highlighted in red and brown here, we've added, the project added a 2 million gallon water tank, as well as a watershed protection channel. There's 2 sections to that. And then this side is coming together a little bit here on the colors. But the remaining area, perhaps bounce back to the previous slide, the remaining houses, as noted, that are going to be constructed are roughly 74, 75 lots of the single-family detached, and as well as the senior site and the 25 estate lots. that's remaining to be completed. In terms of infrastructure, roads, that's all installed. The remaining item that we need to do with the roads are cap pave the streets, but other than that, everything is, the development is actually in. We'll go to the last one. So yeah, just to recap as a summary, about 95% of all the land development work is complete. It's really just remaining parkways and capping the streets from a land development perspective. 75 lots remaining on the detached, the senior site and the estate lots. As noted, the senior site has all the land development component complete already. The streets are in and paved, water, sewer, storm drain. All of that stuff is already in the ground. So we're well on our way. It's just the next step is vertical construction. So that completes my presentation.
Can you go back a slide or two
sure.
and show where the senior complex is going to be?
Yeah, I can walk
Here
over.
you are.
Point to it.
Oh, okay.
It's right here in the center. As you come down Sequoia, enters the project. This portion.
That whole section there? Okay, good. Thank you.
And I'm here with for other questions that you might have.
Yeah, just more than anything, I went up and drove a couple days ago, looked around. Very nice, by the way. The landscaping's awesome. And,
thank
you. How many homes have you got to sell yet? How many unsold homes do you have that are completed but unsold?
That's a good question. I would imagine, and I don't know the exact numbers, there's probably roughly 20, 25 homes that are built but not sold. There's 2 builders on this project, KB and Lennar. We do have different business models. Lennar sometimes will build a few homes and then sell them, so there might be some inventory. KB typically will sell the lot, build the house, somebody moves in without any standing inventory. So the number is probably in the 20 range.
Okay, it certainly sounds like there's not a big backlog.
No, I mean, backlog in different ways. Yeah, there's not a lot of inventory backlog.
Right.
We hope to have more sales backlog.
Okay, there you go. Okay. All right, now I think I'll offer up, since we plugged in, it looks like we have an error on our script, but I'll offer up to the public if anybody has any comments from the public. Yes, ma'am.
I still haven't heard an answer to both of your questions of whether the senior park can be built before the remaining homes. I know you both asked that, and I.
Okay, would you mind coming up and announce and give your name and fill out a card? I'm sorry.
Oh, I'm sorry.
My card is already up there, but I was here for the cell towers. I just stayed to hear what else was going on.
Okay.
Yeah, that's me.
Okay. Any other public comments? Okay, would you like to respond to that question?
Sure. Absolutely. It's a good question. There's nothing precluding the development of the senior site before the remaining homes or to do the remaining homes before the senior site. The remaining homes will continue to be built. There's nothing stopping that, just the rate of sales. As far as the senior site, there's also nothing necessarily stopping that. The 2 partners on the project, Lennar and KB, are currently discussing how to move forward and go vertical with the senior site. So it is certainly planned to be done. We don't have a specific start date yet for the senior site.
Okay.
So that's particularly is a joint venture between the 2?
Yeah, in fact, the entire site, the entire project is a joint venture.
But they do their homes and you do your homes.
Yeah, out of the 298, it was split not exactly down the middle by numerically, but more of the value of each lot. And then the remaining assets, the 25 estate lots and the senior site, are still currently a 50-50 joint venture.
All right, thanks.
Okay. Staff, do you have any response to what we've been discussing? Okay. Council have any more comments? Or any comments? We were in the questions, by the way. Now we're in the comments.
I'm impressed with what you've done up there so far. It does, like Mayor Mashburn said, your landscaping is wonderful and you keep it up. The park and the walkways to that. And the couple of times I've been up there, I've been very impressed with what you're doing. So thank you. And again, senior center, or senior area first.
Other comments? Elaine?
I think I made my comments when I'm supposed to be asking questions, so sorry.
That's right. We were talking to staff when we were supposed to be talking to the applicant. So we'll get through this.
I do just want to make a comment that I do like that the senior facilities are all on one floor and there is an elevator. So even though there are 2 levels, that the whole facility for each abode for the seniors is on one level, and that there is an elevator, and that's not always possible with senior development. So I really like that component of this development, and it serves a need in our community for our seniors.
Something tells me Judy Pepio had something to do with this project also. Maybe just a little bit of input, huh? When it comes to elevators and what have you for seniors. Okay. Do you have any rebuttal? Anything else to say, sir? You don't.
I don't, but thank you.
Okay. Okay, at this time the hearing's closed. We'll move, I guess we're waiting for a motion. I would like to give one last comment, and that is the senior component is very important to us. And I think when you originally planned the development, there was a large amount of seniors that supported it based on the senior housing component. So we want to remember that, and I think you have. I'm not saying that you haven't, but I think that's why we asked some of the questions we have and what have you, is because the seniors are anxious to see this and want to see it, and likewise so do we. So I'm hoping that we'll see it maybe earlier than 3 years. That would be great, because I think there's a lot of folks out there very interested in the product. And with that, I'm looking for a motion.
I move to introduce an ordinance approving development agreement amendment number DA-04-01, AMD number 03, to allow a 3-year time extension and reuse of the certified final environmental impact report and addendum for the Runkle Canyon Woodlands project.
Second.
And I think let me just make clear, I don't think we need a second and a vote on this. It's just an introduction of an ordinance. Okay. So again, the script, I apologize for that, because we looked at it as well, but when it has the vote, it's not necessary in this case.
Okay, would you like to withdraw your second, please?
So withdrawn.
Okay. So that's it. Okay. Thank you very much.
Yeah, for the first read of an ordinance, just someone moves to introduce.
Okay.
Okay, Mr. Mayor and City Council members, the next item on the agenda is 7A, approval of recommended enhancements to the Simi Valley Transit Program as presented in Phase 3 of the Short Range Transit Plan. And Ron Fuchiwaki is here for this presentation.
Good evening, Mayor Mashburn and council members. Tonight, staff is presenting recommendations from the Short Range Transit Plan designed to enhance Simi Valley Transit Program. The Short Range Transit Plan is a 5-year strategic plan that provides for the development and implementation of transportation services in Simi Valley. The plan is being developed by our consultant, Mobility Planners, in 3 phases. Phase 1 included community outreach and information and data gathering, which led to the outline of organizational and service alternatives that were analyzed in Phase 2. Phase 2 of the plan presented a detailed analysis of financial and service scenarios. Briefly, these scenarios included a streamlined transit management scenario that emphasized streamlining management staffing and utilizing comprehensive transit management software system to improve the efficiency of the operations. A second scenario was a service contracting scenario that analyzed contracting out a portion of Simi Valley Transit's operations to a private transit operator. And finally, a third scenario was a Gold Coast Transit scenario that reviewed the feasibility of joining the Gold Coast Transit District and discontinuing city operation of transit services. The City Council reviewed these scenarios and directed staff to move forward with the streamlined transit management scenario, which does not involve any contracting of transit services. Based on the City Council direction, Phase 3 of the Short-Range Transit Plan developed recommendations to enhance and improve the transit program. This phase also included additional public workshops to obtain public input about various transportation options, as well as meetings with city staff and the transit coach operators. The list of recommendations includes 4 primary categories: transit management actions, fixed route service plan, ADA, DAR service plan, and fare policy recommendations. Before I turn it over to our consultant, I would like to introduce Ben Gonzalez on my left. He's our transit operations manager. Robin Walker is our senior management analyst, takes care of all the financial aspects of the transit district. And now I'd like to ask our consultant, Cliff Chambers, to discuss some of the key recommendations very briefly on the Phase 3 of the Short-Range Transit Plan.
Thank you very much. I just want to emphasize, since we have some new council members, that this is the 3rd phase, and the recommendations are really based on extensive public input. We did a survey on board the buses. We did focus groups of various market segments of individuals who use both the fixed route bus service and the ADA, which is the Americans with Disability Act / DAR, which is Dial-A-Ride, which is a demand response transit system for both individuals with disabilities and with seniors. So we did talk to a lot of people. We had a couple of open forums, and then we went to the City Council and reported on those findings, and then we came back with the alternatives that we discussed and got very clear direction from the City Council of where to proceed. So now we're at the stage of making specific recommendations for the short-range transit plan. So next slide. Oh, here, there you go. Didn't work first time. There. Okay. So the first category is because we're doing a streamlined management scenario that the council directed us to. There's a whole series of actions that we'd like to recommend. The first is procuring a new software package for the ADA Dial-A-Ride service to improve the scheduling and efficiency and customer service for passengers. The second is basically to provide better scheduling that would allow us to match passenger demand with the supply of service. That might include things in terms of having split shifts with the drivers and being able to, if we don't have the demand or we have a lot of cancellations, to be able to send the drivers home, which doesn't take place right now. The third is basically to have a new transit database system for monitoring and tracking performance. There's a lot of grunt work that currently happens in terms of data entry and Excel spreadsheets, and there's a state-of-the-art data management system that would really improve the efficiency of operations that we're recommending. And then from a passenger perspective of having real-time information in terms of when the bus is going to arrive. If you've taken the bus, you're looking down the street, when is the bus going to arrive? This would really tell you on your app or at key locations, when the bus is actually going to arrive at the stop. And that's in the process of being implemented. And then to reduce middle management staffing, we did a review of the staffing patterns and are recommending that we reduce one transit supervisor and one transit operator assistance position. And with this improved scheduling and efficiencies, we possibly, depending on how the scheduling works out, to eliminate up to 3 coach operator positions based on the scheduling efficiencies. And this would be done through, hopefully, attrition first. So people terminate, and then we just wouldn't rehire those positions. That would be the first priority. Next slide, please. So in terms of the actual fixed route service plan, in your packet has the details. I'm just going to quickly summarize these. Right now, Simi Valley Transit doesn't have a major transfer location where people can transfer from one bus to the other and also meet the Ventura County Transportation Commission buses that do serve Simi Valley. So we're recommending, at least to start, a temporary transit center at Avenida, Simi, and Tapa Canyon Boulevard along the street. And then in the capital plan, we'll be recommending at least a study of a permanent location for a transit center. In terms of the routes, there's right now a route between the Chatworth Metrolink station that comes to the Civic Center, and the frequency is about an hour and 10 minutes. And we're recommending extending that route based on public input out to Moore Park College, and it would then serve the Adventist Health Hospital, the Town Center Mall, the Human Service Agency on Madera between there. And so it would really provide a main line route between the Metrolink station in Chatsworth to Moore Park College, all with the goal of really increasing ridership on all these routes. The third is is really restructuring the route system. One of the things we heard during the public outreach is it takes a very long time and a lot of indirect travel to ride the bus. And so we got a lot of input in terms of where the buses might go. So we're recommending 2 new local routes, Route 20, which would basically run along East Los Angeles Avenue between Yosemite and Madera, with a sidetrack tour up to the Civic Center in the middle of the route. And it would be every 30 minutes between 6 a.m. and 6 p.m., and then go to 60 minutes until 8 p.m. And then a second Route 30, which would serve down to Royal Avenue in that area. And that was also run every 30 minutes. And then we got a lot of good input from senior and disabled population in terms of what we call a community service route. And it's kind of a hybrid between a regular fixed route with the full 35-foot buses. We would operate small buses, and it would connect senior housing with key destinations in terms of medical facilities, shopping facilities. We'd use low-floor buses, so there's no wheelchair lift that's required, and it would be fairly inexpensive. We would try to have a fare of 75 cents for the service, and it would really provide an alternative. So it's on a fixed route, fixed schedule. So the bus would come every 30 minutes, and it would be much more convenient. Instead of having to make a reservation the previous day, that you'd actually be able to get out and ride. We're recommending it as a pilot program. It would operate from 9 a.m. to 3 p.m., and we got a lot of input in terms of where it would go and the route, and that's in your full packet. Next slide. So in fiscal year 2021, we would implement a new one-year pilot Uber pool discount program. If you've taken Uber, there's a selection that you can make for a pooled ride, which is much less expensive. And the idea would be to have a 50% subsidy up to a maximum of $10 per trip. So if you're your trip cost $8, the passengers would pay $4, the city would subsidize $4, and you'd have a maximum subsidy of $10. Right now, the ADA Dial-A-Ride has a subsidy of about $70 per one-way trip. So a round trip right now costs $140. So this is a way to provide better incentives for less costly, more cost-efficient type of service. And there would be 3 market segments to be served. There would be ADA paratransit individuals, seniors 65 and above, and those in terms of the Reagan Library, which is served right now by Route D, which we would recommend eliminating. And essentially, people would be able to take, for example, take the train to the Metrolink station here in Simi Valley and use the Uber pool to actually get to and from a hotel or directly to the library itself. And that's the whole kind of concept behind that. And so beyond that, fiscal year 21-22, only if performance measures are achieved and they can be financially sustained would we recommend things like extending weekday and Saturday evening hours later till 9:30, which was extremely popular with passengers we surveyed. Same with the Sunday service was something that they really want. But those services tend to be less ridership and have a detrimental impact on what's called the fare box recovery ratio, which is the fare revenue divided by the costs give you the rate. And there's state regulations that require 10% fare box recovery ratio for ADA Dial-A-Ride and 20% for fixed route. So, but if our recommendations, the recommendations here really pan out, we have really good ridership and it could be financially sustained, those kinds of things would be implemented. In terms of, the next slide please, in terms of the ADA Dial-A-Ride service plan recommendations, after we've implemented the community service route, which is really designed to serve seniors and persons with disabilities, and we've implemented the Uber pool, we'd come back and reconsider the eligibility for seniors 65 and above. That's a discretionary choice right now that the previous councils have made. It's not required under the Americans with Disabilities Act, and you're paying a lot of money right now for those trips. And that is a discretionary choice that you certainly can have. But part of the plan is to try to provide options that are less costly than providing that type of service. The second is basically after the fixed route plan is approved, there would be an new ADA service area required under the Americans with Disabilities Act, which is 3/4 of a mile around the fixed route. And then we really want to make sure that people who are eligible for ADA are recertified, and that only those people who really need the service are actually riding the service. We reduce the advanced reservation from 2 weeks possible to 1 week. You can make it up to the day before, but what happens if you have it out 14 days in advance, people cancel a lot, and so it reduces your efficiency because of the cancellations and the no-shows. And so we'd revise those policies. And then we would basically have automatic call-outs with this new software so that passengers know the bus is actually coming. You get an automatic phone call that's coming 10 minutes out, so you be prepared, ready for when the bus actually arrives. Next slide, please. And so the key fare policy recommendations is the basic philosophy is we want to keep the same market rate that other Ventura County agencies have. So the base fare for the general public right now is $1.50, and for seniors and disabled, it's 75 cents. So we would keep that. We keep the same pricing for the day pass and for the 25 ride passes. But right now, the Ventura County Transportation Commission sells a 31-day pass also for $50, and we're recommending to reduce, but that includes not only service within Simi Valley, but all of the VCTC routes that run throughout Ventura County, is to reduce it to $45 and to really market those to human service agencies for that pass, that you would then get more fare revenue for Simi Valley Transit. And that we would increase the fare on ADA, or recommending, I should say, to increase the fare from ADA dial-a-ride from $2 to $3, and for the 10-ride books from $20 to $25. All other transit agencies in Ventura County currently have a $3 fare, where Simi Valley is the only one that has a $2 fare. And so you, under the Americans with Disabilities Act, you can charge double what the base fare is, which is $1.50. So that's why all the other agencies currently have a $3 fare. So we're recommending to be in line with other agencies in the county. And then, so the other thing is that we want to basically recommend purchasing software so that if you have a cell phone, that you can actually use your cell phone to pay the fare instead of exact change, which is really popular in a number of different areas, other agencies. So we'd really, as a convenience to the passengers, really like to recommend that we're able to do that, and there's software that allows us to do that. And then the final slide is basically a policy to achieve, I mentioned the fare box recovery ratio, which Simi Valley Transit has had a lot of difficulty meeting. And I've gone through a couple of these key points, but I think the key thing is because of the decision to stay with Simi Valley Transit, we're probably not going to meet the fare box recovery ratio because of the cost structure that you currently have. And so we would recommending using local funds to make up the difference between the fare box revenue required to meet the 10% ADA dial-a-ride and 20% fixed route. And that could be advertising revenues, and as a last resort, to utilize the City of Simi Valley general funds as the local funds to achieve the fare box recovery ratio. So that's my presentation, and I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Questions?
Actually, I do have some questions. If you want to see if you.
Sure, go ahead.
I want to understand the logistics as a Uber driver, Uber rider, excuse me. How the Uber pool. I see that it's to benefit your ADA and your seniors and your Reagan riders. How? I know it's private sector. You have software. How do you actually pay 50% of that fare? How does that work?
Well, and this has been done with a lot of transit agencies across the United States, have been partnering with Uber and Lyft. And so there is an agreement that you enter into these organizations. We had meetings with Uber on this, and so they have these different models that you can do. And so they basically have within, fares that are within, trips that are within Simi Valley for people who are registered as part of Simi Valley Transit. And we work with a deal with them, so they do it, would then qualify for this discount, and they would have a code. So there are these, promotional codes that you've probably seen if you've used Uber that you can enter. They would have to enter a, promotional code for eligible, and then that's how it's tracked.
Gotcha. So the casual Reagan rider might, well, I guess if they were.
If you're not registered with Simi Valley Transit, you wouldn't have it. But the idea is to target it to seniors and those that are currently using the system, and so you can promote it for Reagan library use. So right now, Route D doesn't even serve the Metrolink station, and when it would basically promote it, it would be a partnership with the Reagan Library to kind of promote that as an access point. And it would help with economic development. They could stay in a local hotel, go to local restaurants, also the Reagan Library, but not have to drive.
Gotcha. And that kind of goes to my second question. I noticed in Exhibit 12 in the document provided that your recommended marketing advertising expense for fiscal year 2019-20 is $90,000, which is about $899,000 more than the actual for 2017-18. So I guess my question is what that advertising looks like that makes all this happen.
Well, it is with the new system, ridership has been declining with Simi Valley Transit. So it's really making sure that people know that the real-time information, for example, is available, and that these fares. And so it's a lot of it is public information, redoing the brochures, but also at the bus shelters, making sure that information is available at the bus shelters. If you've seen the bus shelters right now, there is some information available, but it needs to be more visible, aware, and redesigned so it's more attractive. And we are going to, in the next phase, if you go ahead, once you approve the service plan, we are going to have a marketing plan element that will be developed for this. But the first year costs for actually implementing this are fairly extensive because of all the public information that's necessary to get the word out on all of this and to really promote the service to get the, hopefully reverse the trend of declining ridership.
Gotcha. Okay, thank you.
Okay.
I just want to applaud you on the outreach that you did. I was here before I was elected on the city council meetings regarding this issue of public transportation. I know that one of the things we hear over and over and over again is the issue of traffic. There's too much traffic. We don't want so much traffic. And every time we talk about developments, that's always an issue. So I know that increasing the ridership, I'm very excited to see the routing to Moore Park College. Specifically, I have 2 teenage children that I want to send to summer school over at Moore Park College. And the fact that our buses did not go all the way up to Moore Park College but just made a U and turn around just seemed really silly to me. So I'm really glad that you reached out to our ridership. I think there's a lot of youth, a lot of teenagers who this will really pertain to. Like I said, I have 2 teenagers that I would love to say, here, take the bus to Moore Park College, but it didn't really go there. I didn't really feel comfortable the bus leaving them half a mile away and them having to walk up to Moore Park College.
Right.
So I think that's really huge, and that will increase our ridership. The bus shelters are really pivotal in making sure that people feel secure and they have a safe place to wait while they wait for that. The improved service, again, this is going to help our lessen our environmental impact, lessen traffic, increase service not only for our seniors but for our youth. I noticed that a lot of our youth are waiting longer and longer to get their driver's licenses. I don't know if that's just they want us, the parents, to drive them around more, but I've definitely been a huge proponent of public transportation, and I think it's well worth the investment of advertising it, making sure we increase ridership, making sure that our youth know and our seniors know and are served, especially with our aging community, but also encouraging our youth. They're definitely worried about the environment. They're definitely worried about traffic. Like I said, a lot of them don't want to get their driver's licenses till later. I don't know why, but they don't. And this is definitely more appealing to the youth. The fact that, again, a way to appeal to our youth and being able to add fare on your smartphone is huge. Being able to not have to wait until your mom, can reload your card or have that exact change. Most people don't even carry exact change anymore. Most people want to scan something on their phone, or they have a fare card. I know in Los Angeles we're definitely catching up to the times, so I'm really excited. When I read this and I read the report, I was very excited about so many components of it. And as far as our, the 5 positions, I'm glad to hear about, you waiting for the attrition rate. I'm always concerned about ensuring that our city employees have an opportunity to stay on, and that we increase their opportunity to use the resources that we have here. I think this will make us more of an attractive city, having better bus service, and this will help, like I said, increase ridership and decrease traffic, which I know is a concern for everyone in Simi Valley. So thank you so much for this. I really appreciate it.
You're very welcome. Did you attend one of our first open houses a little over a year ago?
I did not, but
okay.
I will.
But you look familiar. That's all. Okay.
Any other questions? Anything from staff?
No.
Okay. Comments?
I'd love to make some comments, actually. I want you to know, I thank you for answering the questions. I did read the report carefully and was quite excited as Councilmember Luevanos articulated. I was excited about the route changes. I was excited that you're now traveling both directions on LA Avenue and covering, and you've got also a north-south component and the connection. Anyway, I thought they were very wise, all of the route changes. And I appreciated that the approach that you're putting the consumer, the customer first, even if it unfortunately meant at the inconvenience of maybe the driver or of staff. But I appreciated that we truly were trying to make it lean but flexible, so that it met the needs of the ridership. And I too like the app fare pay component. But overall, I just thought it was a very well-prepared report and an exciting opportunity. And I liked, too, that your fare, that you're not making these changes with fare increases, that you're able to, for the most part, keeping the fare component the same, where there's a few places where you've tweaked it to make it more competitive, I should say. But overall, I think it's a very, very good plan.
Thank you.
Myself, the only concern I have is when I heard you talking about the fare box subsidy from the general fund at a time that we're moving into an area that the general fund isn't exactly doing well. So I'm sure that's not a huge amount, and I certainly hope it's not. But that's the only thing that really caught my ears, and I go, "Ooh, wait a minute, here we go again, subsidizing." So with that said, good report. Appreciate the time that's been spent and the presentation.
Well, I understand the concern, and that was why we presented the other alternatives, the organizational ones, in terms of the contracting or going to Gold Coast Transit. So there's a trade-off in terms of there were more cost efficiencies there. So you don't have those cost efficiencies. In order to meet the fare box recovery requirements, the money has to come from other places. So I think what the staff will be able to do is to maximize every cost exclusion, advertise. We can use local advertising revenue as part of that fare box recovery ratio now. But there will probably be some need for local funds, and the general fund would be the last resort, but will probably have to be used. Unless we have ridership that goes through the roof, which we always hope we do, but it's probably still going to need some sort of level, and that's why I wanted to make sure you were aware of it.
Did I read that we have a 2-year exclusion before, because of the changes, that would not, as far as having to meet that?
Yes, you did read it very carefully, and that's true. So basically, state law allows, when you restructure a service like we're doing right now, for the first 2 years, you're exempt from the fare box recovery ratio for the fixed route. You're still going to have to be a requirement for the 80A dial-a-ride, but meeting the 20% fare box recovery ratio would be exempt. So it won't kick in for another couple of years.
Mary? I'd like to compliment you on the ADA dial-a-ride service plan. I think that will be beneficial to our seniors and our people that use it the most. We have operators out here. I know they were curious to see how we were going to do this. So I think there are enough variances there where it should be able to serve everybody. And so thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, ready for a motion.
I move to approve the recommended enhancements to the Simi Valley Transit Program as presented in Phase 3 of the Short Range Transit Plan.
I second it.
Okay, call for the vote.
Motion passes unanimously. Okay, Mr. Mayor and City Council members, the next item on the agenda is 8A, Mid-Year Financial Report for fiscal year 2018 to 19. Approval of a new appropriations request, approval of a loan forgiveness request, approval of reclassification of 2 vacant positions, and the adoption of 2 resolutions amending 2 classification titles. The resolutions are as follows. Resolution number 2019-08, a resolution of the City Council of the City of Simi Valley, amending resolution number 2015-61 to delete a classification title of a general unit designated classification and related compensation range, and to reclassify 2 incumbents currently occupying the classification. Resolution number 2019-09, a resolution of the City Council of the City of Simi Valley amending resolution number 2018-03 to change the classification title of a management designated classification. Carolyn Johnson is here for this presentation.
Good evening, Mayor Mashburn and council members. I've kind of a lot to cover tonight, so I'll start by going over an overview of the fiscal year 17-18 year end, followed by the 18-19 mid-year results so far. I'll then briefly cover the enterprise funds, followed by a new appropriation request, a loan forgiveness request, and some human resources action requests.
Carolyn, I'm sorry. Could we interrupt you and we'll take a 5-minute break?
Sure.
Thank
okay.
Okay, we'll bring the meeting back to order. Thank you, Carolyn, and you're on.
Okay. So I'll give an overview of the fiscal year 17-18 year end, followed by the 18-19 mid-year results. I'll then briefly cover the enterprise funds, followed by a new appropriation request, a loan forgiveness request, and some human resources action requests. So just to review, the city's fiscal year runs from July to June. Fiscal year 17-18 ended on June 30th, 2018. So fiscal year 17-18 is ending with approximately 1.6 million revenues over expenditures in Fund 100. So this is good news because when we first put the budget together for fiscal year 17-18, we were projecting a year end with a deficit of 1.3 million and applying a loan receivable of 1.3 million to the year end to end the year end balance. We have not applied that loan receivable, and so even without it, we are ending the year with more revenues than expenditures. This was achieved through reduced spending overall and increased revenues. Personnel savings were achieved through positions being kept vacant for a period of time before being filled or not being filled at all. The fund balance of Fund 100 was $35.4 million in June 2017 and $37 million in June of 2018. So here's a 5-year history of the general fund year-end results. I presented the same slide during the first quarter review. I just updated 17-18 with the final numbers. As a reminder, the reason for the negative year-end number in fiscal year 13-14 was because the city was required to write off a $2.8 million in bad debt. Fiscal years 14-15 and 15-16 each ended with more revenue than expenses. And fiscal year 16-17, the general fund spent more than it took in and ended the year in a deficit. Fiscal year 17-18 ended a lot better than we've seen over the past few years. Revenues were up just over $4 million or 6% over the previous year, while expenses were up only $1.3 million or 2% over the previous year. The largest revenue increases were in property taxes and sales tax, which each brought in $1 million more than the year before. So now at mid-year for fiscal year 18-19, the city has brought in 44.3% of budgeted revenues, which is very similar to where we were at mid-year last year. Last year we have 44.1% of budgeted revenues at mid-year. So far this year, the city has spent 40.7% of budgeted expenditures, which compares favorably to last year's mid-year expenditures, which were 46.3%. This is mostly due to spending less on salaries and benefits this year. Citywide, the base salary spending is $760,000 less than it was at mid-year last year, and the overtime spending is $350,000 less than it was at mid-year last year. Almost all of the overtime savings are in the police department. So far this year, revenues are exceeding expenditures. Sales tax and property tax revenue are coming in slightly higher than anticipated. It is important to keep in mind that some expenses, such as capital expenses and materials and supplies, tend to come toward the end of the fiscal year. So keeping that in mind, the projection for the end of the fiscal year does remain conservative. At this time, the projection for fiscal year 18-19 year end is to end the year with revenues over expenditures of $219,700. Revenues are projected to come in slightly lower than budgeted, and expenses are expected to be $2.2 million lower than budgeted. Now, this projection does not include the supplemental budget appropriation that we are asking for, and I will address that in a few minutes. With the supplemental appropriation approved and included in the year-end projection, the year-end projection would be perhaps around $350,000 more in expenses than revenues. The city does have 3 enterprise funds: transit, water, and sanitation. So we'll talk about the transit fund first. Mid-year revenues are only at 1.9% of budget. That's due primarily to transfers in not being processed yet, and also delays in receipt of grant funding due to grants being reimbursement-based in nature. Total expenditures at mid-year are only 4.6% of budget, due primarily to staff vacancies and delay in the projects, the short-range transit plan and the Transportation Development Act projects haven't really gotten going yet. A review of the transit fund with updated year-end working capital projections will be presented in the 1920 proposed budget. So the sanitation fund and the water funds are doing well. In sanitation operations, the revenue is at 53.7% of the budget for the year, with expenditures only at 23.2%. And in water operations, the revenue is at 55.7% of budget, with expenditures at 46.3%. So the low expenditure amounts are due to project budgets not having been spent as of yet. There are projects that are in the planning stages and just haven't gotten going quite yet. So earlier I mentioned a new appropriation request. Staff is asking for a general fund appropriation of $547,000 and then transferring those funds to the debt service fund. This is for the 18-19 payments of the financing for the replacement of the city's telephone system, retrofitting the lighting with city facilities to LED technology, and replacement of the HVAC equipment at city facilities. This is a tax-exempt financing that was approved by City Council on November 13th, 2017, and secured with the bank in December of 2017. The initial payments began this fiscal year 18-19, but were not accounted for during the annual budget process. So the first payment has been made, and we are now asking for the appropriation so we can transfer the funds into the debt service fund, and so we don't want that fund to be in the negative. Staff is also asking for forgiveness of a loan from the general fund to the liability fund. The liability fund has had a cash in it of $2,344,000 as a loan. It's been sitting there in excess of 18 years. So to stabilize the liability fund balance, staff is requesting City Council forgive the loan from the general fund to the liability insurance fund in the amount of, it's $2,344,000. This will make these funds available to the general liability fund. In light of the long-term nature of this item with no repayment, the city's auditors have recommended it be reviewed and addressed, and the debt being forgiven will reduce the fund balance of the general fund. And then there are 4 requests from Human Resources with regards to positions. They're spelled out in detail in the agenda report. I wasn't going to go into all the detail unless you have some questions. There's also people here from the departments that can answer your questions. There are 3 positions that are requested to be reclassified and 1 reclassification requested to be deleted. So in summary, fiscal year 17-18 ended with revenues over expenditures of about $1.6 million in the general fund, the Fund 100. The current year, fiscal year 18-19, is doing well at mid-year with revenues exceeding expenditures, but keep in mind that some types of expenditures do tend to occur at the second half of the year, and so therefore the year-end projections are still conservative. But new appropriation request for the debt service payment could cause the year-end to end with less revenue than expenses. The loan forgiveness will reduce the general fund balance, but will help stabilize the liability fund. And Human Resources has 4 position-related requests. And that concludes the report.
Questions of staff? Go ahead.
First of all, I want to thank you, Carolyn, for putting together the comparisons with your 5 years of your mid-year projections and actual versus. So thank you for putting that so clearly to be found. Just a few questions about this chart that you created, and I do appreciate it. I recognize that this is basically showing the flow of actual monies in and out. I recognize that. But this does, I just want to be clear, this does not represent what our unfunded pension liability is, nor does it show actually how much deferred capital improvements. Is that correct? I mean, so those are items that would or could or should be brought to
Right,
bear on
this is just actual expenditures and actual revenues. It's not, it's not.
Liabilities or
Yeah.
things. Gotcha,
Yeah.
gotcha. And so I guess, is it possible to, and not for the sake of willing, but just for getting a report that sometime that shows that as well with this? So, I mean, I just think it would be helpful for the city council to get the full picture of our, I guess, what our obligations are beyond what we're actually paying for in a year's time. But I had a question particularly, and maybe you're not the one to ask, maybe I need to ask Mr. I never say his name right. Well, I'll say it right. But basically, my question has to do with our capital projects.
Mhm.
As I looked at all three reports, transit, sanitation, waterworks, in all cases, what was budgeted for capital projects was much more than what has actually been paid. So for instance, in transit, we've budgeted over $2 million, but we've only spent $47,000. Same thing with sanitation. We budgeted $8.7 million, but we've spent $89,000. In water funds, capital projects, 1.5, we've only spent 30. And I recognize you said that often that gets paid for at the end of the year, but I guess my question is, are we just holding off on all of our capital improvement projects? Are they, what is causing such a disparity between what's budgeted and what we've actually spent?
So, Councilmember Litster, I can start off, and then if you have further questions. So, you had warned me that some of these questions would come, so I had gotten some information more specifically on the sanitation water, not on the transit itself. But in sanitation, based on what I have, and I can get this out to the council, we have about 19 projects. Let me see. Yeah, in sanitation, we have about 19 projects that are in planning or design. So they're either in design, or we have where we're putting several projects together to do one major project. So I call that the planning phase for those projects. There's about $14,500,000 in construction that's budgeted, that's in that planning or design or completed design, about to go into RFP for construction, in that category for sanitation. In water, we have about 12 projects that has a little over $5 million that is either in what I would call design or about to go, a couple of them are about to go into the construction phase where they are going to be bid out for construction. So some of the budgeting happens where you do get a couple of years out before you actually see the construction. So when you budget, or at least here when we budget for capital projects, they tend to sometimes go a couple of years before the construction actually holds. But we do put those that budgeted items as placeholders into the future years. Based on that, there's a third category, and that's in the waterworks. And based on that, I felt that we were going to be over budget, or at least that we were going to deplete many of our reserves in the waterworks fund this past year. I did a review of all capital projects, and there's about $5.5 million, $5 million of it in recycled water projects that we're not going to bring in, we did not have contracts in place to be able to extend that construction. So we actually have put on hold and eliminated about $5.5 million in capital projects in the waterworks, either put on hold or eliminated in the waterworks projects that were in the initial budget. So they haven't been, so they aren't going to be moving forward in the budget or into future years. It's about $5.5 million in that category. I do not have any transit answers, but I do have those for waterworks. Or if you have more questions on that, you could, Ron or Joe could probably answer that.
Is that the same for transit? Is that what's going on?
Pretty much, unfortunately in transit, we're just a little bit behind in the processing of some of our capital projects. Plus, there's a big chunk of capital project money that's been set aside for the enhancements to our transit system, the short-range transit plan improvements you heard tonight, and asked us to move forward with. Some of that, the cost of those are in one of our capital projects, and so that's been sitting waiting for the short-range transit plan to move forward.
Okay.
But admittedly, we are a little behind. Sometimes we're a little short-staffed in terms of the capital side of transit.
Thank you. I think that's it for right now.
Okay. Anybody else with questions? I want to talk about the liability fund. And I think with the recent press release, there's been several questions maybe you can help us with. Is the liability fund, currently what's the liability fund balance?
Well, I figured I can't tell you the current balance. Recently, there's been a lot of checks going in from insurance companies and some wire transfers going out, and the current balance isn't really accurate. But what I did was I looked at the balance without that activity. Mm-hmm. And so with the loan forgiveness and with a $5 million payout, at the end of the year, it's hard to say because I don't know exactly what all of our expenditures are going to be this year. But if we had no more expenditures this year, at the end of the year, we'd have around $822,000. And there's about, if we've spent our full budget for the year, we'd maybe be short about a little over 100,000. So probably we wouldn't spend the entire amount that's been budgeted for the year.
So to put another way, what Carolyn's saying is I agree with what Carolyn just said, putting in summary that after you take in that $5 million of liability and you take in the if you authorize forgiving the loan, that will be either 100,000 up or 100,000 down. We'll be somewhere in that range at the year end, which then means we're going to need to fund back up the liability fund. During my tenure here, we've been anywhere from $2.5 million up to $500,000 to $1 million down over those 5 to 6 years. So this isn't as far down as we have been, but it's nowhere near where I would call a healthy reserve, which would be in the $2.5 to $3 million.
And that liability fund then is where it needs to be based on transfer out of the general fund?
No, I'd say it's short of where ideally we'd want it to be. So that's something that needs to be looked at in the next budget or in the incoming budget that we're going into.
Okay. And so not counting the insurance money that you mentioned, we're able to pay our share of that liability.
If we didn't have that big claim, we would be in a fairly healthy position in the liability fund. So because of that, we're down to about zero balance, but we're going to have to build that back up. And that's after you take all the costs out of there, we're about to a zero balance.
Okay. But we're still exceeding, revenues are still exceeding expenditures in the overall, in the general fund?
Oh, you're talking about for, yes, because we didn't move any general fund money to the liability fund. We just forgiven we're just requesting you forgive the loan that's been in there for about 18 years.
Yeah. Okay. Could you go back in your slides and you go back to where it was you were going to reallocate funds for positions. Okay, Office Specialist 2 reclassification to Human Resource Technician. Can you explain that further, or are you the proper person? You may not be the one that. City manager.
I can start, and then Jennifer is here. But on that particular position, those two positions, the office specialist 2 and the human resource technician, are almost in the same pay grade. They're like probably 5 cents an hour difference between those two pay grades. And I believe that Jennifer wanted to get a more specialist person in there than is currently allocated in the budget, and so that's why we're putting it in there, in order to eliminate the office specialist 2 and put in the human resource technician. Dollars wise for the council, it's not really a change, because essentially it's about 5 cents an hour difference is what you're talking about.
Okay, and where are these positions?
That position is in human resources itself.
Okay. So it's, okay, I get it. There's very little, it's just a technicality.
It's a technicality. I think on the bottom of the scale, it's like 2 cents to one side, and on the top of the scale, it's a 2 cents to the other side. So it's almost exactly the same salary.
Okay.
It's just she wanted a different type of position, and so that's why we're
Okay.
doing it. Or requesting.
Any other questions? Okay.
Did you want to speak on the,
So I did put in thoughts, there's 3 positions that we have being eliminated April 1st, which I did put in the report, but it's not in the actual motion. And that is one position, which would be one of the crime analyst positions, which if you kept it in there for the rest of the fiscal year, we would freeze the records tech position. And then the second position, which is, I can't remember, but I can't remember the exact title of it, program.
is it community services coordinator?
Yeah, community services coordinator, that we would freeze into June. One of the community service coordinators in a different department, and that position would also would have to agree to be trained as a backup into dispatch. So that'd be to get the savings to take that into the June 30th of 2019. And then the third is a repurposing of the second crime analyst position to June 30th, but that all 3 positions would not be automatically put into the budget for next year. That'd have to be reconsidered as part of the new budget. So they would be termed to be ending at the end of June 30th, 2019, unless reauthorized for the next budget. That's what I've discussed with the police department at this time, and they're here if you have questions of them.
What does repurpose mean?
I'll let the chief answer that question.
So repurposing basically refers to the fact that one of the positions, I think the one you're talking about, the department is required by law to have a victim's advocate now. We're out of compliance with that. That's a change in state law. And so repurposing that would be to use that position kind of in a hybrid of continuing to do crime analysis work, but also representing the department's victim's advocate, because it's something we're required by law to have. So rather than going out and hiring somebody separate to do that, which we've done in the past, we've had 2 victims advocates in the past. We would just take that current position that we have and repurpose it into a hybrid of doing those duties and also continuing to do the analysis work.
So we're not eliminating that department?
That's what we've proposed at this point.
For the end of 2019,
Right.
but it would be eliminated going forward into 2019, 2020.
So those 3 employees are all being repurposed into something else?
From my understanding, yes.
If approved, because all 3 positions are out of the budget as of April 1.
Right.
That it's a choice of the council, but because we've had savings in other personnel, we would be able to keep them in place till June 30th, 2019. But then at that point, with the new budget, it would they would go away.
We had, didn't we have a $300,000 savings is kind of what we had proposed?
I think it was
So
actually
was that
more like 500.
Through, where was that savings going to be through to, what dates?
No, it wasn't that much of a savings. It was about I want to say it was $100,000 to $200,000 savings for this year, projected to be 500,000 plus in the next fiscal year. So that's why they would be ending on June 30th, because the next year is when the major savings in those three positions.
Okay, so, oops, sorry. So to make sure I'm clear,
Right.
so the two crime analysis positions and the crime prevention position
Right.
are all being eliminated as of June 1st.
Correct. That was the proposal, yes.
And that's instead of
this year.
April.
Right.
It was good. When we voted on it, it was going to be April, am I correct?
Correct.
That's why I was
Okay,
confused.
so now so we don't need to save money this year.
I'm not saying that. I'm saying that would be one way in that case. And and the way we would do it is two other positions would be frozen that are vacant right now. And we would not be filling those positions. That's where the money would be saved for two of those positions.
Well, I think I can explain it. In terms of the savings, I'm not, I know that we're looking at certain dollar amounts. And so the problem is that we've had three people that have been told they're eliminated, and they've stayed in this position. So it's created, to be honest, it's created a nightmare in that rank. Right. So what we're trying to do, or what I'm trying to do, is I have a need. I'm in the victim's advocate because I'm going to have to hire somebody anyway because I'm already out of compliance by law. And I'm looking at it and saying this is a way that we can actually utilize the services of these people, these positions, and at the same time accomplish what we need to accomplish by state law. So I'm looking at it as a solution, and that's why it's called the repurposing, because we're basically taking three individuals who are cut, and we're putting them to use in other ways. We've now formed the Public Relations Department of the Police Department, or the Public Relations Bureau, and so there's a lot more we can do with crime prevention. If you recall, when this first came up, the council asked me, how am I going to do crime analysis? How am I going to do crime prevention? Well, I'm coming up with different ways to do that. And at the same time, I'm trying to really correct a situation that, frankly, I got to be honest with you, was really not handled properly. I think when you're going to cut three people, and then those three people are going to stay in place and see hiring going on all over the rest of the city, I'm the department head. How do I deal with that? So what I'm trying to do is really preserve something and try to use it to the benefit of the department and the city. So that's that in a nutshell. That's what it is. I do understand that if we cut it, we should cut it, and we're going to get that savings that you're referring to. But in the meantime, I've got three employees who have been essentially left in place, and it's created a disruption, which are all I'm sure pretty much aware of. So I'm just trying to speak honestly about it to you.
And I definitely appreciate what you're trying to do, but the flip side of that is there was opportunity provided is what I voted on. And did those individuals, because I thought the greatest thing is that no one was going to be shown the door and have to walk out.
Correct.
But I also hear, and I don't know, that they didn't take advantage of the offer of you can go to this position, that position, wherever you want. They insisted, no, we're going to stay here.
Well, that's not 100% correct. In the past, what's happened when we've eliminated positions is that we have people have bumping rights. They're approached by human resources, and they're told, okay, your position's eliminated, here's where you're going to go, or here's where you have the ability to go. And from my understanding, those employees never had that level of communication and were expected to apply for other open positions, but that's only.
Well, I want to revise that real quick. So bumping rights come when your position's being eliminated, and since we're still more than a month out, typically like when we were in 2012, it happened almost immediately. So then they went and communicated the bumping rights. So in March, they will be able to have those bumping rights. One of different levels. There may be one of the positions that would not have bumping rights at all. There's two that probably would, and we do have two vacant positions that they'd be able to bump into. And those are the two positions we would freeze if they.
The ones we're talking about
Yeah,
now?
right, that's correct.
Okay. I think, I know from my personal standpoint, what I'm trying to say is about it, close to a year ago, we voted for something to happen. It never happened.
That's
And
correct.
it puts the council in a very awkward position to have to answer the questions from so many because of all of the advertising that went out by the individuals. It comes back on us. And the analogy I use, if you tug on a Band-Aid very slowly, it hurts for a long time.
Correct.
And
I would agree with that.
that's called torture. And unfortunately, these employees were put in that position. And so if this is the remedy that you, the chief of the department, are recommending, that's a good thing.
It is, and I wouldn't, just so you understand, I wouldn't come to you with something if I felt like, it wasn't going to benefit the department in that regard. At the time that we made this recommendation, my recommendation that was we cut it. We didn't have the money, and we didn't do that. We didn't follow that course, and that created a lot of the issues. And I'm not going to point fingers at how that happened, but the reality of it is I've got 3 individuals, longtime employees, that are in a situation that it's intolerable, to be honest with you. And that's just
okay. I've got
honest.
One other question, and it's almost more curiosity. Okay, so we take this person that is trained in another field, and
Yes.
now to make it to where you're legal, we're going to put that person into this new slot.
Correct.
Is that suddenly going to take lots and lots of training, and that's going to be very expensive to make them qualified to do this new job?
No, because a victim's advocate, is essentially basically to communicate no differently than we communicate with anybody in the public that's been a victim of a crime. Here's your rights. And then they're referred to the district attorney's office, who has another victim's advocate. But it's a new state law. This particular individual is also trained in peer support and has also completed a large amount of training already that helps them deal with individuals in crisis. So I think it was a perfect marrying of those two roles that I think worked out perfect in that regard. So it's not going to be, there's not going to be a cost deal to it. A lot of the training can be done right through the district attorney's office because they provide those services.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Any other comments, questions?
Could I go back to the liability fund real quick and just, because obviously we came out with a press release last week or late last week, early this week, depending upon your viewpoint, regarding a major litigation. And so the $5 million that we were talking about that gets us to about a zero balance, the comparison that I want to make sure that I at least speak about publicly is we've talked about that this case could have been settled, or could have, if it went to litigation, if it went and to the full litigation and we lost the case, we were looking at double to quadruple the potential loss to the city of what we settled at. And if that had happened, what this liability fund would have had to pay would have been a lot more than what we are currently. So I just want to make sure that you, publicly stating that the $5 million and being able to keep a balanced budget or keep it at zero balance for the liability fund is more favorable than where we could have been if we hadn't settled that case.
Okay, it's, correct me if I'm wrong, it was my belief that if we didn't settle, that we had a strong possibility of losing a lot of the insurance coverage.
I would agree with you that that there was uncertainty regarding that. I would definitely agree with you 100% on that.
Okay, so to tag on to your earlier comments then, not only would the potential price of litigation and what we'd be forced to pay would be huge, like as much as, and in fact, I think it says somewhere as much as $80 million. And of that, we wouldn't get as much from insurance companies as we currently are.
I think, I would agree with you. I think that 5 million would have been the floor of what we would have paid if it had gone full litigation. That would have been at the floor, and it would have gone upwards from there.
Okay. Thank you. Anybody else? Okay.
I move to receive and file the, yes? I move to receive and file the fiscal year 2018-19 mid-year financial report, approve a general fund supplemental budget appropriation in the amount of $574,000, and transfer of such funds to the debt services fund, forgiveness of a loan in the amount of $2,344,000 from the general fund to the general liability fund, the reclassification of a vacant office specialist 2 position to a human resources technician position, the reclassification of a vacant utility system manager position to an enterprise systems analyst, adoption of the resolution that deletes a classification title of a general unit designated classification, and adoption of the resolution that changes the classification titles of a management designated classification.
Second.
Just, can I note, does anyone want to add does the repurposing need to be added to this as a?
I believe it's included in the
is
motion.
it? Okay.
It's not included in the motion.
It would have to be added.
Would you like to
I would
amend?
like to modify my motion to include the reclassification suggested by Chief Livingstone.
I think it's a repurposing.
Repurposing, yes.
Is that the specific definition? Repurpose?
I guess if it could be, if the maker of the motion, repurposing consistent with the staff report, I guess is probably the best way to do it.
Yeah, say manager.
Okay.
Recommendation in the staff report.
I move to include I amend my motion to include the repurposing from the staff report.
Second.
Call for the vote.
Motion passes unanimously. Mr. Mayor and City Council members, the next item on the agenda is 9A, City Council member reports.
Okay. Council member Lister.
I should report that probably everywhere I went, Mayor Mashburn was there as well. So anything I choose to say, he has done as well. I will just add that. On Saturday, February the 16th, I had the pleasure of attending pet adoption event at Teresa's and met the owners and great things that they're doing there. On Thursday, February 21st, I got to eat a fabulous sandwich at Chick-fil-A's grand opening. Great to have them here in our community. I wanted to commend the efforts of Jody Kirschberg, who has recently retired, and there was a retirement event for her at noon on that day, and thank her for her years and years of service to our city. Also was able to attend the Simi Ed Foundation Teacher of the Month presentation at Madera Elementary. That evening, attended the Soroptimist International of Simi Valley, where they had 2 awardees, and I'd like to commend Jenny Saturday and Jennifer Hayden, who were the recipients of their awards for furthering their careers and bettering their lives as single parents, single mothers, and continuing their education. Saturday, February 23rd, Mayor Mashburn and I attended the Chinese-American New Year celebration in Camarillo, and I understand that there's a move to try to get it here in Simi Valley. It was lovely. I might add, yesterday, it was great to attend the Simi Valley Girls Softball opening day, but wanted to mention also that I had the privilege of actually playing the harp with the Westlake Village Symphony, where they had a musical thank you to our first responders. And it was just some wonderful patriotic music, and it was a tribute to the men and women who've done so much of late, particularly, to keep our community safe. And so I think that completes my report.
All right. Councilmember Luevanos.
On Thursday, February 14th, I attended the Task Force on Homelessness along with Councilmember Judge at the Simi Valley Public Library. And we were able to I was able to meet everyone on the task force, which was very nice, and jump right into dealing with our issue of homelessness here in Simi Valley. On Saturday, February 16th, I attended the swearing-in ceremony / community town hall for Assemblymember Christy Smith, who represents Simi Valley. That was in Valencia. It was very nice to see public engagement and discourse from our elected representatives, and to know that we can collaborate with them. On Tuesday, February 19th, Mayor Pro Tem Kavanaugh and I interviewed Neighborhood Council 2 and 4, who were appointed this evening. And I was able to take a tour of the Samaritan Center and attend the homelessness caseworker meeting to give me more insight to our homelessness issues. And on Sunday, February 24th, Mayor Mashburn, Mayor Pro Tem Kavanaugh, and I attended Congresswoman Katie Hill's town hall right here in our own City Hall chambers.
Thank you. Councilmember.
I attended 2 task force meetings for the City Council, Task Force on Homelessness on February 14th, and the Simi Valley Arts Commission on February 20th. That's the end of my report.
Mayor Pro Tem Kavanaugh.
A couple of things I attended with other members, so I won't repeat those. On February 21st, I did have one of the Chick-fil-A grand opening sandwiches. Those were really good. That was my first Chick-fil-A sandwich ever. It was good. That same day, I attended the EDC VC board meeting, so that's the Economic Development Collaborative. I just really want to encourage any Simi Valley businesses that are looking for assistance, whether it's in HR, whether it's in small business lending, whether it's in developing a business plan. They are the place to go. It's free. They have consultants that are fantastic. They also do loans if you've been denied by a bank. They do startup loans. They do loans for increasing your business. And they just really, really offer a great program for everybody. I think they get a little upset that they're underutilized in East County. We do a lot of business in the Oxnard and Ventura area, and my bank in particular has made a large deposit to do small business loans, but they have very, very well qualified people. And I can't say anything more. It's free. So it's really, really a good place to go. Their website is edcollaborative.com. And I think they're really just waiting for Simi Valley to start taking advantage of the products they have. So with that, my final report is Simi Valley girls softball opening was really cute. That's my report.
Thank you. Let's see, on Thursday, February 21st, myself and Council Member Lister attended the Simi Ed Foundation Teacher of the Month program at Madera. And I think that's important that we attend and interact with the school district as much as possible. And so it's a monthly event, usually at different schools, but it's something I feel is a good thing, and it's actually a lot of fun. So we took care of that. And on the same day, I attended the Ventura County Fire Department's 23rd Annual Awards Ceremony. Now, the Ventura County firefighters, and of course the room was equally full of police officers and deputies, and we know they all do a good job, there's without a doubt, and many were recognized. However, we had a local resident that was recognized for saving a life at the In-N-Out on Stearns, and I asked, and we're going to contact them, and I would like to bring that person here and have the council recognize him for what he did in the way of saving a life, and I think it would be a good thing. Also, I also asked that the Firefighter of the Year from Battalion 4, which is the area we're in, I think it would be good to have him here also. So that was what I did. Also on Sunday, I too attended the girls softball opening day. And the reason I bring it up is we go every year, and it's very nice. Those softball fields were kind of inspired by a little girl named Amanda McPherson, who is no longer with us. But when you look at those fields and you look at all the girls' teams and how much fun they're having and what a great program is out there, it just is amazing to me that this young girl inspired so many adults and the park district and the city to recognize what she had done in this way. So I'd just like to give a big shout out for Amanda. And that's my report.
Mr. Mayor and City Council members, the next item on the agenda is 9B, City Council Board Member or Special District Member requests for future City Council agenda items.
And I think Councilmember Luevanos has something that she wants to present.
Yes, I would request that staff look into the council proposing an ordinance to set procedures for filling future vacancies for city council members, so that it's set forth in the ordinance and we don't have to decide at the last minute how we're going to appoint or fill vacancies, whether it's going to be by election or by appointment. I think I'd like to see all the options set forth and us having it actually put into an ordinance in order to make sure we have accountability and transparency.
Good, we'll put that down. Anybody else?
Yeah, I do have something. When the community project grants first started up, when Waste Management first started giving us the money after we approved or gave the blessing, I guess, to their expansion, that money was going to be slated for, I believe at the time it was the free clinic for a few years. And then the free clinic was caught up in a little debacle with the community foundation and having a little problem with, I believe it was, I'm forgetting the legal word for it. Embezzlement. That's embezzlement. But that they are now no longer part of that foundation. That foundation is no longer around. So what I'm looking for the council to look into again is, because now we have the free clinic in our city. It is a jewel of our city. It's one of the very few in the county, and it says something. It was also the first in the county, and Simi Valley was the first to have it. And I think it deserves a lot of our support. They've been given the great opportunity to have a new building. There's not really a new building, but it's a new building for them, given to them by the county at a very low rate. I think it's the $1 a year type of thing. And it is a great facility. It is in need of some work, and the plans that they have for it are outstanding. So I'd like the council to revisit and possibly slating the money from the community projects grant, which is not the CDBG funds, it's just the money that comes from Waste Management, to the free clinic for a period of years, like maybe the next 3, so that they can get on their feet running with this project, because they're looking for upwards of $1 million in donations and stuff to get this thing going. So I think the money that comes from Waste Management, what I say, I think we had slated from the council at the beginning to go to the free clinic for a little while. I would just like to see us look at that again and hopefully get that back on track. Because I understand there's lots of needs in this community for grant money, but the free clinic is, like I say, a jewel of our community. It's something that's historic in our community. It's something that does a lot of good for a lot of people in our community. That's my...
All I could do is say I echo exactly what Councilmember Judge says. They've gone through some hard times because of exactly what he talked about, and because of the switch from the city building that was going to be provided to them and funds that they expended getting that ready, and then to go through the transition to go to the county building. On top of that, they kept their doors open all the way through, and they kept the dentist office open, and they do mental health counseling, and they kept all of those things running. And what always amazes me is that I can walk into the free clinic today, see a qualified doctor, and be treated for whatever, and walk out and not have to pay a penny. And that's open to every resident, and has been for a number of years. So I would think if we can get a report back from staff on if we can do that or not, I don't know what the legal rights are, but if we could come up with a report to let us know what we can do in the way of funneling. Funneling is probably not the right word to use. Appropriating those funds, I think it's to a worthwhile cause, and definitely an outstanding participant in our city that helps this city.
And I just have a question, so I understand better. You're suggesting the community block grants that people would be applying for in the next few weeks, basically stopping that, and no. Okay, I'm just.
Separate.
Community block grants is separate.
Okay.
This is our community projects grant, which is given to us strictly.
Gotcha, okay, thank you.
Okay, any other? Okay, tonight's meeting, we're going to adjourn the meeting in memory of Robert Fiesler, who's a former Simi Valley resident. He was also an LAPD sergeant who's retired. He's also a Vietnam War veteran, and most likely his life was taken from Agent Orange. So we're going to close in his memory tonight, and we're also going to close in the memory of John Rose. That's it. Meeting's adjourned, if I can find the thing.